Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Non-Strategic Planning Committee on Thursday, the 18th of June. I will start with item 1, apologies for absence and notification of substitute members.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Nigel Beryl, Councillor Caroline Phillips and Councillor Zoe Smith. We will be having Councillor Sally Keeble as a substitute for Councillor Smith and Councillor Adrian Little as a substitute for Councillor Phillips. Nothing further to report.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee have any declarations of interest in any of the items under consideration at this meeting? Councillor Furman.
Yes, thank you. Declaration of interest on 21 Whitegates. I'm the ward councillor, so therefore I will not be contributing to the debate, but I request that I reserve the right to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I will be speaking. Sorry, Sally. No problem. Yep. No, I will be speaking on that one in objection, so I'll be sitting out of the discussion on this one and not voting. So that's okay. Thank you and welcome. Any further declarations of interest? Councillor Ware?
Not a declaration of interest, but when you step out, Chair, I presume the Vice Chair will take over the running of that section.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 3, minutes. Do we confirm the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 4th of June as a correct record? Yep. Yep. Okay. Have you got the minutes? Thank you. Item 4, Chair's announcements. Members of the public are permitted to film, broadcast and report on the meeting, subject to the efficient running of the meeting not being affected. Only those people who have registered in line with the committee's speaking procedure may address the committee. Members of the public are requested not to call out during the committee's discussion on any item. Anybody who repeatedly disrupts the meeting may be asked to leave. All speakers will have 5 minutes in which to make their statement, except where Chair's discretion has been applied, and are asked to remain seated after they have addressed the committee to answer any questions the committee may have. This meeting is being webcast on the Council's corporate YouTube channel. Therefore, when speaking, please always speak clearly and concisely into the microphone. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm does sound, evacuation instructions will be given by Democratic Services. Please ensure that any devices are switched off or on silent mode. For the benefit of the public watching remotely, I will now introduce the top table, starting at my furthest right.
I'm Eamon McDowell. I'm the Development Management Team Leader, it says here, for the North area.
I'm Councillor John East and I'm Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Richard Woods, Democratic Services Officer.
Teresa Boyd, Planning Solicitor.
Thank you. Item 5, proposed pre-committee site visits. There are no proposed pre-committee site visits ahead of next meeting on the 2nd of July. We now move on to item 6, which is the land adjacent to Masonic Club, Sheaf Close, Northampton. I'll now hand over to the case officer, Christopher Bates, to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of some updates, following the publishing of the committee report, which is set out in the addendum, there's been a further 5 rejection comments received from adjacent commercial and industrial properties, and there is also to be an additional noise condition to be added with the wording to be agreed thereafter. The application site is located on the north side of Harleston Road within the Lodge Way Industrial Park Industrial Estate in northwest Northampton. The site, again marked in red, is part of Lodge Park. It's identified as a safeguarding employment area in line with policy EC1 of Northampton Local Plan. It sits next to the Masonic Club to the east with industrial units to the north and west. The current land comprises of scrubland. Site photos on your screen are the access as shown from Harleston Road. So trees will need to be removed to facilitate the access. And look in the opposite direction towards the residential properties on the southern side of Harleston Road. A site photo looking west is one of the industrial units. Looking north, which is currently used as a HGV training facility. And looking east is the Masonic Club. So, and then looking south is from the opposite side on Harleston Road where the trees are to be removed. Regards to the proposed site plan, as shown on the screen is a site plan with vehicle access, again, as shown on Harleston Road. The apartment block is laid out in an L shape with amenity space to the rear. Car park in front of the site with further spaces to the side, along with electric vehicle charging points and cycle storage. On your screen are the proposed elevations. The building would have a relatively contemporary appearance, and owing to its setback from the public domain would result in a built form of development that is relatively unobtrusive. Its flat roof appearance is also considered to correspond well with the adjacent industrial, but the flat roof appearance is also considered to correspond well with the adjacent industrial buildings. And there's the other on the screen. In conclusion, our recommendation is to approve the application subject to completion of a Section 106 legal agreement.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee at this point? No. Oh, Councillor Firmin.
Thank you. Just from my understanding, is the only pedestrian entry and access, you might show it on the screen there, is that only onto the main road and not through the industrial area?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Ware.
I noted from your report the housing market evidence report mentioned. Do you have any further information on that? Because I can see from your report that there's a minimum of 183 across the area for affordable housing per year, and this site will give 7. Have you got any more information about housing needs in this area, please?
This application wasn't subject to any kind of local housing needs. I know we wouldn't have any kind of local information on this. I think the fact that this application's kind of coming on 6 years old is obviously, in terms of the housing to be, obviously, in the Section 106 agreement, they are kind of entitled to provide a 35% affordable housing. The basis of that, whether it's kind of social rented or whatnot, hasn't been obviously disclosed, and that would obviously be subject to the kind of agreement between the council and the agent.
Chair, if I may just follow up on
certainly.
that. So just for the point of clarity, then the housing needs that we've been working on is dated 2017. So just so I'm clear, the housing needs survey that we're working with, the housing market evidence, is dated 2017. It is in your report. My apologies, I didn't make the page reference, bear with. Thank you. It's page 23 of your report.
What's the paragraph number? Sorry.
It's in the planning policy comment. It says the applicant should refer to housing market evidence 2017.
Yes, those policy comments are probably quite dated. I mean, what was set out in the kind of, obviously, in the report is, I think planning policy did ask for evidence to show that, obviously market evidence to show that no employment land could come forward. Obviously, they haven't provided that, and obviously that goes against the application in terms of obviously carrying weight. So I think the apologies if not correct, but I think that marking, obviously evidence is probably outdated now, but that wouldn't really carry any weight in towards our kind of assessment. Obviously they've provided their kind of 20 apartments, which is, I think it's a mixture of 1 and 2 beds, and obviously with the affordable housing, yes, that would obviously just be like a blanket assessment which we apply.
Thank you.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed on the noise impact assessment that was carried out 6 years ago. Some of the comments say there have been material changes with 24-hour working within that industrial site. Is there any plan for a new noise impact assessment? Has that been taken into consideration before recommendations to approve?
Yes, so our EHO officer obviously recommended that the noise impact assessment was acceptable, and owing to kind of objection comments, yeah, we obviously set out that there's obviously changes in the site that obviously we're not aware of, so that's why we recommended in the addendum that, yeah, there is an updated noise assessment, and obviously that could be done after, well, it's part of an updated condition, and that's kind of feasible in this instance, and we think that's kind of relevant and necessary to enforce it by condition.
Councillor Cartwright. Sorry, carry on.
So I'm not quite sure I understand. Are you saying that that's a condition, there has to be another noise impact assessment before?
Yeah, that's correct. In the addendum, we've recommended that updated noise assessment is carried out, and obviously that would detail glazing, ventilation, also the kind of other mitigation. We've put a condition as well, which is requested a new noise condition for the external area, because out the back of the apartment there's an external noise, sorry, there's external like amenity space next to the industrial, and we set out that additional kind of service needs to be carried out so we can detail what the kind of mitigation is going to be in terms of kind of like noise barriers and booms and acoustic treatment. So yeah, that's all set out in conditions.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have some concerns from the comments made by some of the objectors on this. It is primarily industrial area. My concerns are, is there any way of how do you stop a residential block then interfering with the business? For the once you hit statutory noise problems, you get abatements and all that. That's a legal requirement. So, can all the mitigation be put in place first and tested to make sure that the noise is correct, rather than hoping and praying that if it's approved and it's built, that the residents either end up with something that we're not sure if it's going to be proved to be no noise effects on their amenity while not interfering with the businesses. So I don't know whether that means the screening first or extra insulation in the building. Can that be done beforehand or not? Thank you.
In effect, that's what the conditions set out to do. So they'll obviously assess the kind of background noise and obviously the industrial activities and the noises, and that will obviously give them a background level, and then they can mitigate the glazing and obviously the external amenity area as well. So that's our intentions of the additional conditions, and obviously if they're not adhered to, then I guess obviously they're kind of a breach of conditions.
If I may come back on that, Chair. I'm concerned that there is industrial work going on at one side, and at the other side where the lodge is, there could be late night entertainment, weekends, whatever, you know, disrupting people's enjoyment of their area. But is there a way of seeing that the residents aren't inconvenienced, but they also don't then inconvenience the businesses either around them? Is that something you can do now, or is that a hit and hope afterwards?
Yeah, so in terms, obviously we can't do another survey post-occupation. But what we would do is make sure that there's an updated noise report, because we accept that the previous noise report is quite old, so we need a new noise report just to make sure that all the mitigation measures within that report are still appropriate and relevant to mitigate the noise in the environment. Obviously, you do get a lot of residential uses within noisy environments, such as, you know, town centres where, you know, there's late night entertainment, and, you know, they obviously coexist. So I don't see there being too much of an issue in terms of the residential unit or apartment blocks going here without it being mitigated to a degree that obviously both the different uses can coexist together.
Councillor Ware.
Question relating to your report 7.102, where you're talking about drafting of a section 106, and your report implies that it hasn't actually started yet. Have you got any update on where the 106?
I can answer that.
Thank you.
I haven't yet received any instructions from planning, but that's the normal situation. Once the application's been approved in principle by committee, then officers send through their instructions and the legal work commences at that point.
Thank you. So no update. Thank you.
Any further questions from the committee? Councillor Little.
Sorry, just a final question, Chair. Is there a future risk to businesses in that site where complaints of noise will impact on their ability to carry out their business and trade in the future? Is that a material risk?
Yeah, of course there'll be a degree of risk in terms of if a statutory nuisance complaint is received, then our environmental health officers will then be duty bound to then investigate that as under their statutory nuisance. But having said that, you know, it's no difference to, you know, residential apartments within the town centre where you know, you may get statutory nuisances from outdoor drinking facilities, nightclubs, those sorts of activities.
Councillor Cartwright.
Sorry, Chair, thanks. Yeah, just to come back on that, you know, those things are only mitigated by, you know, insulation and what have you on the venue. What it sounds like we could end up with is that the businesses would have to insulate where at the moment there's no need for them to. It's an industrial area, so that's where my concern is, and how that affects what would be in effect a residential block afterwards is you know, especially if they want to, whatever business they're doing, they want to change and it becomes noisier, or they develop more closer to the block of flats, and you know, then suddenly they're having to contest with the residents of whether they can do that or not. Is there anything we can do to put something in place that doesn't happen, or is that something that can't be done?
Yeah, it's not something that can be done, but obviously the noise assessment which has been done and the updated noise assessment will look into what the background noise is within the area, taking into account the existing industrial activities and noises, you know, coming from those activities, and then it will make sure that the noise levels, the internal noise levels within the apartments are an acceptable level and mitigated for, like you say, it may be extra insulation, it may be mechanical ventilation, it may be triple glazing. So it's all of those different elements which will be considered to make sure that that it is an acceptable level.
Sorry, just to obviously at night time noise is louder, travels further. In town, in the build-up area, it's different. Out there where this is, there's nothing else around other than just those industrial units. So I don't know if there's anything extra that needs to be done, or if we can, you know, I don't think if you can condition anything for that, or is that just a total no?
I mean, the updated noise report will obviously take all that into consideration. I mean, with this area, you haven't just got the industrial units, you've also got the Harleston Road, which is quite a busy road in itself, so you'll have all the noise traffic generated from that. So our environmental health are comfortable based on the previous assessment that's been done that you know, the principle of having a residential apartment here is acceptable, subject to mitigation. And the updated report, which we're seeking through a condition, will obviously update to see whether the background noise is still the same as it was 6 years ago, and the mitigation previously set out is still appropriate and relevant, or whether there needs to be anything additional. Yeah.
Any further questions? Just to come back on the point that you raised about employment and the industrial sites, policy EC1 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2, safeguard all existing employment sites, including enterprise zone, as shown. Obviously, if that's an enterprise zone, then it might be subject to that policy. As consideration. As there are no public speakers, obviously we'll move straight to the debate. So if anybody would like to make a start. Councillor Ware.
I think we need to remember that literally across the road are a load of houses. And whilst any noise, I do think I would condition 28 around getting an up-to-date noise survey I would endorse completely. I think we need to remember that this is not purely an industrial area, it is also a residential area. And it does have previous planning approval for a residential care home. And I note from the officer's report that there's not an awful lot of evidence that the applicant did anything to develop that as a care home. But nonetheless, I think it's had that prior approval. There is mixed usage in that area. With a noise survey, then I would be inclined to support this, especially soon as we have the housing needs that we have. Thank you.
Councillor Cartwright.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, Chair, through you. I'm inclined to agree with those last statements. I'm just, as I say, I'm conscious of where the noise encroaches one way or then the other after they're built, if they're approved, and I don't want to mess up the business area, clearly. But at the same time, we need housing, and this area has already changed from being a fully business area. So I'm inclined to agree. We need housing. We can't demonstrate our 5-year land supply, tilted balance, and all the rest of that. So I concur.
Any further comments from anybody? Does anybody wish to make a proposal?
I'm happy to make a proposal that we go with officer's advice and approve this.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for this? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Cartwright.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Ware and seconded by Councillor Cartwright that the application be approved in accordance with the officer's recommendation, subject to the conditions set out in the report and the additional condition in the committee updates and the requirements for the section 106 also set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I see a show of hands in favour of the proposal by Councillor Ware?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, that's approved. We now move on to item 7, which is 21 Whitegates, Northampton. I will now hand over to the case officer and Jayan to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So the application was previously considered on 19th of May 2026 and was deferred for site visit. So the proposal was for first floor site extension that creates a 2-story front gable. This is the site location plan. and this is the existing dwelling prior to 2024 application. The site has quite a bit of history. So in 2024, a full planning application was approved for a couple of extensions to the property, and I'll quickly run through the slides on that. And this was the originally submitted proposal that council didn't consider appropriate. And later, the agreed extensions were a wraparound to one side and a garage structure to the other. So the current proposal is for the first floor addition, as you can see, is the light grey area. So to the ground floor, there is no much alterations. The only alteration is, as you can see, to the front of the playroom, there is a 0.5 meter extension that extends forward to create a front gable. And to the first floor is where the additional side extension is proposed for one bedroom. And the blue highlighted part is where the extension is currently proposed. These are a few street scenes within the Whitegates Road, and this is the side photo. The extension will be where the solar panels are currently, and this is from the front. This shows the side views, and this is from the rear. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask for clarification, please? Last time we were here on this, the proposal is just for a first floor extension, and it's an extension that is above the garage, that neither the extension or the garage is being used for commercial use.
Sorry, the proposal is only for the first floor extension that creates a two-story front gable, and the garage was previously approved. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further questions? No. Okay. We will now move to the public speaking in the following order. John Smith, who's a local resident. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yep. Steve Cook, who's a local resident. Yeah, press, yeah.
One. It's pretty obvious, isn't it, really, when you look at it? Good evening, everybody. As I've been introduced, my name is Stephen Cook. I'm a resident at 22 Whitegates, and the boundary between 21 and 22 is we adjoin. I wish to raise my objections to this proposed ground floor and first floor garage extension. My objections are as follows. Impact on character and appearance of the area. The proposed design fails to respect the established character of the property and surrounding street scene. The introduction of a large front-facing gable is inconsistent with the existing architectural form, which is characterised by a low eaves roof with dormer windows. This design approach is typical of neighbouring properties that are on the same side of the street and contributes to a consistent streetscape. The proposed alteration would disrupt this balance, appearing visually dominant and out of keeping with the general design principles set out in the local planning policy. Loss of privacy. The extension will result in an unacceptable loss of privacy to our property due to the approximate 45-degree relationship between number 21's house and number 22. The proximity of the proposed first floor windows would lead to overlooking of our kitchen, bedroom, and a significant portion of our rear garden. This directly conflicts with the local planning policies, which seek to ensure that developments do not result in harmful overlooking or loss of privacy to neighbouring occupiers. Overbearing impact and loss of light. The current extension along our shared boundary, which has recently been approved, is already overbearing. The addition of a first floor extension would increase this issue, further restricting natural light into our garden. The increased height and mass would create a more enclosed and oppressive environment, negatively affecting our outlook and the enjoyment of our home and outdoor space. Overdevelopment of the site. The proposed extension represents a significant increase. The first floor addition alone will be approximately 70% larger than the original first floor area. The total increase with the extensions that have already been approved relates to 120% of the total floor area of the property. This constitutes clear overdevelopment of the site. Furthermore, the development has now got a reduced garden space by approximately 50%, which is contrary to policies that seek to maintain adequate amenity space. Lack of justification for the additional space. The property has already been granted planning permission to change the double garage into living accommodation. This could clearly become the bedroom, as it is of the same size that has been applied for. This will obviously not constitute a substantial and harmful first floor extension. This extension was originally part of the extension that was agreed on the 25th of the 4th, 2005. The planning officer at that time, in her case notes, stated that the first set of revised plans was submitted, which included a two-storey front gable extension. However, this failed to preserve the character of the existing dwelling, and the overall proposed continued to be considered excessive and overbearing. The final amended proposal removed this previously proposed two-storey and side extensions. The revised scheme the revised scheme now complies with the national planning conditions, Northampton's planning condition. I would like to ask if somebody would raise that with the planning officer to why now there is a change of mind when clearly it was described as being not compatible with the street scene. In conclusion, for the reasons that I've outlined above and what I've discussed regarding the initial rejection of this by the planning supervisor, I would the proposal would clearly have a detrimental impact on the character of the area and the residential amenity of neighbouring properties. It is therefore contrary to Northampton's local plan policies and residential design guidance. I therefore respectfully request that the permission is refused.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Speaker from the committee? No. Okay. Oh, Councillor Keeble.
You mentioned about the building, the proposals, the proposed extension would have a visual impact on your property, yeah, because it would be overlooked. I mean, I raised a similar question the last time this came up, but the office at the time said that the consents for proximity to the boundary had already been given. So, I mean, we have to look just at the proposal as it is now. Are you saying that the current proposal would impact on your property? Because yes. I understood it was that infill site, that infill extent would impact on your property. That would
yes, that large proposed bedroom, which, as I said, is 70% of the total floor area above, will have an impact. And the reason it will have an impact is because of the angle of the two properties. That property is 45 degrees to ours. It's not at 90 degrees, so the windows that are shown, actually, the view would then come across into our garden. And that's why we would lose this loss of privacy.
Could we, Chair, would it be possible for us just to see that again so we can see how
Which, the elevations or the photos?
It's the elevations, yeah, so that we can see how it overlooks. I think we can't see it just from the floor plan, can we? I think that's going to be quite hard to work out.
The street scene might be preferable from that one.
Yeah, you can put the street scene.
Or
Through you,
just show
Chairman.
us both of them,
Unfortunately,
show us
sorry to butt in, but unfortunately the street scene does not show the orientation of the house to number 22. It's actually twisted, as I say, 45 degrees. So when you look at the rear elevation, the two windows that you see above that garage door on the bottom drawing, that's where those windows are at 45 degrees to our property, where you will be able to stand and look into our garden, bedroom and kitchen window.
Which window, sorry?
The proposed, it's a shame really, because the architect has gone to great lengths in colouring in two parts of it blue. What they haven't done is coloured in the rear view. So it is actually the two windows on the left hand, the two upper windows on the left hand upper side, just close to where the garage doors are. Yeah, that's one, and the second one further to the, from my left. You're right.
Is there not a tree in the way that prevents that?
No. The trees that were there and were told that they were going to stay to form some sort of buffer have been cut down by the applicant, despite him signing the declaration that no trees would be removed. They have been removed. And as I say, it's difficult to see because, unfortunately, none of the drawings or the photos that have been shown show the orientation of the house to 22. And that is really one of the key things.
Sorry, yeah, good, Councillor Rainbird, and I'll come to you,
Can I ask,
Breeze.
does the existing windows not already do that, or is it because they're now shifted over X amount of metres, then now it does with the 45 degree, or do the existing windows already do that?
The existing windows do to a small degree, but because it's being brought forward by something in the region, I'm trying to think of how many metres, but it's got to be something like 8 or 9 metres forward, then those windows have become a lot closer on a 45 degree angle to our property. So that's why they are actually now going to completely affect the privacy of our dwelling.
Councillor Breeze.
Just so that we can understand the orientation, which I'd find really useful, is it possible to bring up a satellite on Google Maps?
Is it possible?
There. Yeah, okay. Thank you. And so if it can be expanded so that we can see it, it's quite difficult to see from this angle.
It can't be expanded, I'm afraid. It's a PowerPoint.
Sorry, which one is your property again? Sorry, the one, so if you're looking at the...
Our property is number 22. It's the one, it's the corner plot of Whitegates.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought so. All right, thank you, sorry.
Sorry, the property
Is the one on the right?
That one there. Yep. And it is. And if you look at the property that we're now talking about, which is the one with the red blob, you can see that the orientation of the building, and that you know, you can see then at a 45 degree into those rooms as it comes across.
And just clarify which is the tree that you say is being removed?
Sorry.
If we could have clarification of which tree has been removed.
The whole length of trees, other than the laurel at the front of the property, it's difficult without pointing it out. Can I come up and point it or not?
Do you want me to point it out? These two?
Yes, there's a number of trees that run along our boundary. They have been removed, other than one right at the end, and also where that small, slightly discoloured green laurel is at the front. Otherwise, all the rest have been removed, exposing the whole length of that of the dwelling. And as I say, the applicant stated that no trees would be removed in his declaration.
Any further questions for the speaker? No, thank you very much. And I'll call on John Smith, who's a local resident.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah. I'm John Smith. I'm the resident and owner of number 16 in Whitegates on the corner as you drive into the cul-de-sac where number 21 is. I'm here to support Steve on it. Steve knows a lot more about building regulations and planning regulations than I do. He, prior to retirement, was a director of a sizable building firm. Yep. I'll start off then. Yeah, I was pleased to see committee members and the planning officer visit 21 and 22 on Tuesday, and thank you for that. I was advised by some attendees that the applicant spent a lot of time expressing his view that he could not understand why there is so much objection to his plan and looks upon himself as being victimised for no good reason. I'm sorry, but the major victim of his planned extensions are the owners of number 22. There'll be increased traffic, and there is increased traffic and noise. He's got some very noisy sports cars zap in and out, and have done, and are likely to do more so, and present some sort of hazard risk. If he reflects honestly on the complete lack of consideration and consultation he has given to the effect of his extensions are going to have and will have on his neighbours, together with some of his expressed views on their ages, house sizes and longevity, he might be able to answer this himself. The points that I'm not happy with. Number one, the neighbours, parish council and 2 or 3 county councillors support our objections. The only person so far not supporting them is the planning officer. 2, it is an excessive expansion for the site and mainly to accommodate cars. 3, he has not complied with types of material, brickwork, colour, window frames or roof tiles that were stated on the planning application and the architect's drawings. He's removed trees and shrubs. Incidentally, he's moved on the other side because of his original application. He was going to put more garages on the other side, and he's taken down and he's had disputes with the neighbour that side. That was going to box in the neighbour on the other side at the end of the cul-de-sac. Anyway, that was changed. Yeah. So, but again, he's removed trees and shrubs, and he did this during bird nesting times. Total disregard to that. The wall that is now being constructed is far too close to the fence of number 22. If you stand in the garden, and some of the councillors and the planning officer that were there, know what it looks like, and it hasn't been completed yet. It's going to be bigger, higher, and more dominant over the garden of number 22. Dimensions of the existing portion of the wall also that he's had built are higher and different to the plans submitted and approved. I've always been concerned about the house usage for motor trade activity, but it has been accepted by you and him that it will not, that it will not happen. But my suspicions still linger, based partly on the number of cars parked all around the house, back and front, since he moved in 2021. In fact, if you look at that picture and you zoom in on it, you will see, even then, you will see 4 cars at the front, probably 4 cars in the garage, or 2 cars in the garage, 2 cars at the back of the house, and there's a shed further down by where the trees were, in which there were more cars. But anyway, we lost that fight. I've also always been suspicious that the applicant has been playing or gaming your planning system. despite him advising neighbours that he had little or no knowledge of building or planning regulations. He even went as far in the early days as asking the most affected neighbour, Steve Cook, could he recommend to him some architects. I've known for a long time that he has 8 or 9 directorships.
Can you conclude your statements, please?
Yeah, involved in motor trade and also some that were involved in property. While waiting in the reception area outside this room, he introduced himself to me. I've never spoken to him before. And when I asked him about these companies with property interests, he said, oh, they're nothing. They're only little small houses that we rent.
Can you conclude your statements, please?
Sorry?
Can you conclude your statements, please?
Yeah. 3 of these companies I've discovered describe their activities as being development of building projects. This did not surprise me and indicates that his relationship with the truth is a strange one. If they carry out or advise on building projects like his house extension, I can only imagine the projects are like his house extension over time. And so
can we bring this to a close, please?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Are any questions for the speaker from the committee? No. Thank you very much. We now have Ralph Thompson on behalf of the applicant.
I think this is still on, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name's Ralph Thompson. I'm a friend of Gary Kyriakis's, and I just really wanted to make a few points. It seems that some of the comments tonight and also some of the comments from the previous meeting have kind of gone off topic a little bit, and I just really wanted to remind everybody that what we're talking about is a family guy with a young family, a growing family that wants to use his house and make the most of his house. He's got what looks like quite a large property from the front, but actually there's not much depth to the property. So at the moment he's got a 3-bed property, 2 children, talking about having more children. So the 4th bedroom is, I believe, less than 5 square metres. And I think the council's guide on minimum room sizes is 6.5. So all he's actually trying to do, and all this application is about, you know, we can talk about other things, but the relevant point about today's meeting is the small extension at the front to make a very small room usable. And I sympathise with Gary because he's moved from London, he's moved a long way, and he has no support for his children. I often try and get them out, but they invariably don't have child support. I know what it was like for me. My kids are all grown up nowadays, but you know, when you've got family close by, it's a lot easier. But for Gary, he, you know, if the parents are coming over, they have to travel 100 miles, and there's nowhere for them to stay. So he's just simply trying to make use of the space that he's got. Again, I talked about this last time, but there seems to be accusations that Gary works from home and he runs a business from home. That is simply not the case. I've sent details through to the council and I've sent company information. We have an industrial unit in Buckingham that the business trades from. We work together, by the way. And anybody is welcome to come over and get a better understanding of what we do, and it'll be very obvious that the motor trade activities are carried out from the business premises in Buckingham. So anything that Gary does at home is for his own personal use and his own personal hobbies. The other point that I wanted to make was that even once, if this application does get approved, even once the work is done, his house will still be smaller than neighbouring houses. There was some talk about trees being taken down. Gary will tell you more about it when he comes to speak in a moment, but my understanding is that those trees were taken down more than a year before the original application was put forward. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And if, obviously there's nothing to stop the neighbours putting their own trees up, or if there's a requirement for Gary to put some more trees up, I'm sure he'll be happy to do that. I've known Gary a long time, and he's always, to me, he's one of the most conscientious people that I know. I think he's keen to do things in such a way that it doesn't upset any of the neighbours. So, just really keen to make that point clear. I'll also just go through the email that I sent after the last meeting. Yeah, so we had the same thing on the last meeting, and I've written, talking about things that were not relevant. The two neighbours that attended seemed to be talking about things that were not relevant to the planning meeting. The subject due to be discussed was the small middle section, light grey on the plan, but there seemed to be a lot of talk and intent on discussing other areas for which planning permission is already in place. Works in accordance with planning. There was also talk about suspicions that the work completed in progress had not been carried out in accordance with the granted planning permission. Records will show that Gary's been working closely with building regs officers, and the works have not deviated from the planning permissions granted. He has diligently used best endeavours to match brickwork.
Can you conclude your statements, please?
Sure. So yeah, it's just really to make the point that Gary's a family man, just trying to make the most of his home and create some space so that he can get some more support from his family when they come to visit. And when they do come to visit, they come a long way, and it would be nice for him to be able to let them stay over and have the space to accommodate that.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have Gary Kyriakos, who's the applicant.
Chairs and members of the committee. Following the recent site visit, it appeared to help clarify for members of the committee that this planning application refers solely to the two-storey side extension. I would like to begin by expressing my appreciation that the two-storey side extension has been recommended for approval and is supported by both the planning officer and the head of planning. The proposal has been carefully designed with due regard to the site, the existing property and the surrounding area. The property occupies a relatively large plot, and the scale and form of the extension are consistent with both neighbouring properties within Whitegates and the character of the wider locality. Most of which this proposal will be hidden to the view of number 22 by the approved garage currently being built. That is along with the windows. If you have a look at the plans, you will see that the garage extends past the rear windows, so there will be an impossible way to look right at the neighbouring property. Have a little look at that. So if you look at the light grey area, this is what was being proposed. And the garage is on the right-hand side, and the roof extends up and over the windows, so it will be physically impossible. Even if you put your head out of the window and look to the right-hand side, I will not be able to see their house, and that is a guarantee. You can have a look at the plans properly there. Let's get back to where we're here. The visible difference to the side will be the change from a gable end to a slanted hipped roof, which in my opinion will look better than currently for the neighbours. Importantly, officers have concluded that the proposal complies with local planning policy. The assessment confirms that the development would not result in any harmful loss of daylight to the neighbouring properties, nor would it cause undue harm to the character or appearance of the close. Opposite neighbour 17 has got a double gable, which is a lot more intrusive than my house, and that was approved several years ago and has been built. There have also been additional comments in regard to use of my property. I would like to reiterate that this is my family home and will continue to be used as such. I do not operate my business from my property. My MOT and car servicing business has been based and at a dedicated commercial premises in Buckingham for over 15 years. I have no intention to do anything from home in that respect. Also been mentioned, so about the trees. The main trees I removed were over a year before the initial application, which was like 3 years ago. There was a couple of hedges I had to remove because of the building control. I had to have them 3 meters away from the foundation, so there was 3 conifers that were removed, and I would like to put them back in again anyway, so that I'd liked the privacy. Other houses, e.g. my neighbour that's been speaking today, are larger than mine. If you look at the images, they were a lot larger to start with. They're all deeper than mine, so it's difficult to show on a picture. But although, like Ralph said, it's very wide, but there's it's 1 room deep at most, and it's not a large room deep. I did not sign any declarations to anyone to say that I would keep anything like that. I've done my best to try and keep everyone as happy as possible, and I continue to do so. All the previous comments have also been checked by, it's in the planning report. So every objection that they had, it's been counted and said, no, this is correct, or whatever it is. That's hence the reason why it's recommended for approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do the committee have any questions for the speaker? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any points that the officers wish to come back on?
No, thank
you.
I think all I'd do is just to show you the proposed floor plan, and just to point out that these are the windows that are being referred to. So one of the windows serves an ensuite, and the other window serves a dressing room. And also, just to reiterate, whilst there's been a lot of comments about the garage and its use, all we're considering is the first floor extension. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we now move on to debating this application. And we've got a few hands up already. Councillor McMurtry, we'll start with you, and we'll come to you, Councillor Rainbird, afterwards.
Yeah, no, I mean, thanks for everyone's comments. On balance, to me, it seems like it's not the biggest house in the area. As you said, I'm not convinced that it's going to be overlooking. With the window on the right, as you said, you can clearly see that if you were to look right, there would be a wall. So I'm just not convinced it's any more overlooking than any of the other properties in the area. It is a smaller property than some of the other ones in the area, and to me it does seem within keeping. And if you look at distances just on like Google Earth and things like that, the windows are of similar distance of neighbouring properties as other ones. So to me, the garage point isn't relevant because we're not considering that today. We're considering the extension. So in my opinion, I think we should follow officers' advice and improve this application.
Councillor Rainbird.
Yeah, I think that was very well said, Councillor McMurtry. Obviously, following the site visit, obviously I didn't attend the official site visit, but I did attend the site in my own time when I was available. And had a good 20 minutes, half hour walking around the neighbouring area. If I'm honest, I think it's just a really good use of space. I don't think it's going to have any adverse effect on any neighbours. Speaking on to number 19, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dormer windows looking into number 21. Obviously, there was conifers. They've been removed. He just said he'd like to put them back for his own privacy. I don't believe that this application, I don't think he wants to look into neighbours' properties. I think he just wants to build a family home, make a good use of the space, and I think that's exactly what this application is doing. I don't think, I can't see any reason why I would agree to refuse it. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor McMurtry and approve this application of following officer's recommendation.
Any further comments? Councillor Breeze?
Thank you. Just looking at the design, and actually I should have asked this question when we're asking questions of the officers. It does state on page 65, paragraph 9, I think it is, point 9, that it's subservient, that this extension is subservient to the existing dwelling. I'd have thought if it was subservient, it would have had a step down on the roof, because it does make a very, very long plane. And if you look at the property... subservient support, but step down. At number 19, which is just across the way, you can see that how the extension sits below the existing roof line, so that you can tell the stages of development, and wondered if that was something that could be picked up.
Yes, so initially, so if you see the front gable, so the front gable was almost up to the height of the roof, and it was a gable end. So we had requested to reduce the mass and bulk of the roof by making it a hip roof and reduce the front gable and have it set down. And that's how we arrived at a conclusion to have it more subservient to the dwelling than how it was originally submitted. And
so by having that hipped?
Yeah, head, and the front gable bit was all the way up to the main bridge of height, so yes. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further comments, Councillor Rainbird?
So I'd also like to add that there was a point saying it weren't very in keeping with the area and very subservient to it, and if I'm honest, I'd absolutely disagree. Number 17 has got 2 gables, and also number 22? Number 22 got 2 massive gables. I'm really struggling to see why someone would refuse this application. I think it's a very good family home, trying to make good use of the space. It's just infilling the area. So I'd propose that we go with officer's recommendation.
Okay.
Go for approval.
Are there any further comments from the committee? Or okay, have we got a seconder? Yeah, Councillor McMurtry. Okay, can you summarise?
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Rainbird and seconded by Councillor McMurtry that the application be approved in accordance with the recommendation, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Can I see a show of hands in favour of the proposal? Those against? None. And abstentions? Obviously, Councillor Furman. Yep. That's approved then, thank you.
Could I just raise a point?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. There were some remarks made in some of the presentations and the discussion around this about of a very personal nature about the applicant. And I would actually ask that you use your discretion as chair to intervene to stop remarks being made about individuals, be they applicants or objectors, because that's not, you know, this isn't a test of somebody's character, it's a test of planning law.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really, it's really unfortunate to have those kind of remarks made in a committee meeting.
Yeah, noted. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 8, which is number 8, Cedar Road, Northampton. I will now hand over to the case officer, Nathan Healy, to begin the presentation.
Nathan couldn't attend this evening, so it's your good self.
Nathan Jr.
It is indeed. I'll...
Just having secretary problems, so she's sending the statements.
Okay, yep.
It's not the same for Holly Road as well.
Again, through you, Chairman, as the first slide indicates, this is an application at 8 Cedar Road. It's proposing a single-storey rear and side extension to an existing HMO, which is currently at 4 occupation, to increase that to a 6-bedroom house in multiple occupation. The next slide just shows general location plan in terms of the site. It's clearly in a typical Victorian street, primarily residential. The property is a mid-terrace property. And the next photographs show the outrigger, and the proposed rear extension would effectively run alongside the existing one to the neighbour, as you can see, to provide a ground floor bedroom. And the infill extension would, next slide, would basically infill the space between the existing outrigger and the boundary wall to provide capacity to make internal alterations to increase the size of the communal kitchen, etc. And the next slide basically shows the existing footprint. So existing buildings will be reconfigured to accommodate the rear extension to provide that bedroom on the ground floor. And as you'll see, the infill extension would create a larger bedroom and allow for internal alterations to create basically ensuite bedrooms on the ground floor and the enlarged kitchen area. Next slide shows the elevations. As I say, it's fairly modest extensions to the property, which potentially could be PD if this was a normal dwelling. And the next slide shows typical storage facilities to be provided for bin storage and cycle storage. You shall see from the report the officers assessed the application against existing relevant policy on HMOs. It should be, the report points out that the HMO predates the Article 4, so in effect what we're looking at are two aspects to this, which is the physical alterations to the property and the impact they have on residential amenity, and then the addition of 2 further occupants to an existing HMO and how that would impact on the amenity of the area. Overall and on balance, officers considered the proposal would be acceptable and accordingly recommending approval, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Little first.
Thank you, Chair. As I understand, there is guidance when it comes to the communal areas when it comes to HMOs. And as I understand, where a property has 6 residents in there, there's a recommendation that it should be without a living area, as there isn't, there's only a kitchen, it should be at least 13 square metres, which is obviously doesn't comply with this. Am I correct in saying that, or am I?
Well, you're correct in saying that there's guidance in terms of the size of internal floor areas in communal kitchens in the absence of a living room. Yeah, the report sets out those space standards, but on balance, we judge the proposal to be acceptable. There are no objections from the private sector housing who license these particular facilities, and it is an existing HMO. Again, as I say, we don't consider that in planning grounds would be sufficient reasons to withhold planning permission. So it's a balancing exercise.
Sorry, Chair.
Carry on.
As part of the local plan, we have got a duty to ensure that accommodation comes up to a certain standard. I would say that this, I would question whether or not this does, with no communal area. Particularly, I mean, the other concern I have is one of the bedrooms coming directly off the kitchen with fire safety risk where there's possibly no escape from them. from there. But the other thing is, I would like to confirm, could the officers confirm, now, as I understand, the planning regs say that, or the HMO rules say that if a room is over 10.22 metres square, then it can be used as a double room. Does this plan here explicitly say it's limited to 6 single dwellings?
Yeah, again, the report clearly sets out there's a condition on to restrict the occupancy to no more than 6 residents. So that is we consider that to be an enforceable and a necessary condition.
Councillor Furman, did you want to?
Yes, I just thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarity. Sorry, that was all. I noticed that the police and Northampton Town had put objections in, but the supplement to tonight's meeting said the bike storage and the refuse have now been identified. Does that mean those objections have now been dealt with? Thank you.
Yeah, again, have you got the slide up for the floor area? Yeah, that clearly indicates the bike storage and bin storage area. So, in our view, that satisfies that requirement and would be conditioned to provide those prior to occupation.
Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. I was going to ask about the storage areas. I can't see them very well from here. I just wondered if we could enlarge. So, oh, sorry about that. How many slots are there? Because it didn't look like. I mean, if you're having 8 residents there, then how many?
It's 6 residents.
It'd be increased, wouldn't it, if the extra ones go in?
Again, through you,
it's 2. Yeah.
through you, Chairman. There's 2 cycle stores, each with 3 bicycles in there, and likewise the.
And how many bins?
Well, I would indicate that storage bin would provide for sufficient to deal with the property. There's 3 segments shown on the drawing.
There's how many shown on the drawing? 3.
3 segments in the storage compartment. Again, the matter for the servicing that would rest with our waste sort of colleagues, and they would look to provide sufficient to deal with the occupancy of that property. But the compartment shows 3 segments. I haven't sort of measured it off, but that would be sufficient to accommodate numerous bins to serve the development.
Even with the change in the collection.
Again, I don't think that's a relevant planning consideration. But if you want to give weight to that in your assessment of the application, fine. The applicants have indicated.
Okay, you're saying at your peril.
The applicants have indicated bin storage. It will be conditioned, and we would look to secure that. The provision of the physical bins to it lies outside the remit of the planning authority. It would be with the waste authority.
But you're saying that in your view the facilities,
in my view, there's sufficient space within that plot to accommodate both cycle and bin waste storage, as well as some limited amenity space.
Okay, and how about the parking issues?
Again, as the report makes clear, and it's self-evident from the.
There's not enough.
It is self-evident from the Google image. There are no off-street parking being provided for any of the properties in that area. And again, it's making a judgment call as to whether or not the lack of off-street parking is sufficient in this particular case to warrant withholding permission for 2 additional occupants, and whether or not those 2 additional occupants would increase significantly the impact on the local highway network. We consider it doesn't.
Any further questions from the committee? Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. I know on our policy that we, with regard to HMOs and where the density of HMOs and there's something around seeking clarification and whether or not it holds up to the policy that if the number of HMOs in an area exceeds 10%, then it shouldn't be approved. Can we just get clarification that we're not exceeding that level?
Again, through you, Chairman, that's in respect of new HMOs. This is an existing HMO. But that said, I am aware that there are a number of HMOs licensed and unlicensed in the local area, which potentially would take it above the 10%. But in this particular case, it's an existing HMO, so that aspect of the policy and the guidance wouldn't apply, I don't think, in this particular instance.
Any further questions from the committee? Okay, thank you very much. We now have a statement from Councillor Zoe Smith, who's the local ward member.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Smith sends her apologies. She's unable to join remotely due to technical issues, but I will now read the statement. And it begins as follows. This application would add considerable extra pressure on residential amenity in a street already impacted by a large number of HMOs, and concerns have also been raised about illegal HMO activity in the street and associated antisocial behaviour. The addition of so many additional residents in the street, possibly all working different hours at different times, and the associated comings and goings would have a severe impact on the residential amenity of neighbouring residents. If, despite the concerns I've raised, the committee were minded to approve the application, please could they consider a condition removing permitted development rights from the property to avoid further enlargement and additional residents. And that concludes the statement of Councillor Smith. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. If I could just ask, I mean, can I ask about the permitted development rights? Because obviously the concern is that this is a single-storey extension, isn't it? Would the permitted development rights include adding an extra storey onto that? Or what would the impact of the owner exercising those rights? What impact would it have on the number of units in that HMO? I'm really conscious that in that area there has been sort of constant expansion of HMOs, expansion of buildings upwards and downwards, and that has significantly increased the pressure on resources and the amenities of the HMO, and that there are serious issues around that continuing in a sort of unmanaged way.
Again, through you, Chairman, it's my understanding they couldn't exercise permitted development rights in respect of this HMO, so it would require planning permission and would have to come before committee again in due course. What you're being asked to determine tonight is two single-storey extensions and the addition of two, to accommodate the addition of 2 occupants over and above the 4 existing occupants.
Okay, any further questions from the committee? Okay, we now move on to Pat Dooley, who's the agent for the applicant.
Thank you. Okay, Chairman, members of the committee. I've listened to comments made, and hopefully as we're going through my speech I'll expand to cover those points that were pointed out. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak in support of this application on behalf of the applicant. I would like to begin by highlighting what I believe is a key issue before members this evening. As the Officer's report correctly identifies, the use of the property as a HMO is already established, having operated lawfully since 2015, several years before the Article 4 came into force within this area. So when it comes down to area concentration, it has already established use as a HMO, and the area concentration is not applicable in this instance. The issue before members this evening is therefore not whether the property should be a HMO, but whether the proposed extensions and associated increase in occupation are acceptable in planning terms. It should be noted that the side extension to the existing rear projection is relatively modest in scale and is more or less what you could build under permitted development. So the principal element requiring consideration is the actual rear extension. What I consider to be particularly relevant to this application is the planning history relating to neighbouring properties within the same terrace. In 2024, planning permission was granted by the council for similar rear and side extensions to HMO properties at numbers 4 and 6 Cedar Road. Those applications were approved by planning officers and have since been constructed. It is actually evident in one of those photographs that were put up earlier. In addition, Planning Committee also considered and approved an application at number 12 Cedar Road in 2023, involving not only a similar rear extension to that proposed here, but also for the change of use of that property into a 5-person HMO. Members at the time were required to consider concerns related to parking, refuse, HMO occupation, loss of family dwelling, and the impact upon the area before they resolved in granting planning permission at that time. I appreciate that the membership of the Planning Committee has changed since that decision was made. However, the decision remains material planning consideration because it demonstrates how the Council previously assessed and approved a very similar form of development within this same terrace. Importantly, the extensions to the rears 4, 6 and 12 have now all been constructed and actually form a visual pattern of development when viewed from the rear of the properties along the access road. Members may also note that 4 and 6 operate as 6-person HMOs, whilst number 12 was approved Planning Committee as a 5-person HMO, so there are HMOs in close proximity. By comparison, number 8 has operated as a lawful HMO for over 10 years, and the principal use issue, members, is the extensions and the impact of the occupation. And what will happen is this application will need to be, private sector housing have not objected to the proposals. They've looked at the plans, they've seen that the floor areas of both the rooms as well as the communal areas are all in accordance with their requirements and they're not shortfalling as such. To suggest they were short at 13 square metres is not actually a correct assessment request, but they have been considered and they are in compliance. Members will also note that we've acted responsibly to the concerns raised during the application regarding secure cycle storage and bin storage. We have actually provided an additional black bin for this development, which will serve the additional 2 occupants, so there's no issues of the extended amount of refuse causing any problems in the area. We've also increased the cycle parking provision, and that is secure for the rear. It's access from the rear access road and it's secure. Private sector housing, as I say, have reviewed the application and raised our objection. The application will still require to be satisfy their HMO licensing requirements related to room sizes, communal facilities and fire safety and overall living conditions before they'll actually receive a licence. Concerns being raised on the loss of a family home, however, that's not applicable as this has been a HMO since 2015. Chairman, members, when viewed objectively, this proposal seeks permission for modest extensions to an existing HMO, extensions to which have already been approved by both planning officers and planning committee on previous applications. Proposed occupation is consistent with other HMO properties within the terrace. The accommodation is considered acceptable. Additional cycle and refuge provision has been provided, and neither the local highway authority nor private housing sector have raised any objection. This is in a very sustainable location within short walking distance of Kingsley Park Terrace, where there's shops, restaurants. You've got the town's racecourse, again, within short walking distance. In short, this is a modest, sensible and policy-compliant proposal, and I can identify no sound planning reason why number 8 should be treated differently for the comparable schemes which have already been approved nearby within Cedar Road. For those reasons, I respectfully invite members to support the officer recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Ware.
Have you had any feedback from the current residents about their loss of lounge space in this new plan?
The building will be, it's currently empty because it's going to be undergoing a full refurbishment, full stop, so it's going right back to original. We're improving the facilities in all the rooms, providing en suites to every room, which is improving the current layout, which has only got bedrooms with separate bathrooms, which has got less facility community. So the actual benefit to the residents is actually going to be enhanced and the communal room, the kitchen area, does have to be a larger room because we haven't got the other lounge facility. It's one or the other in the HMO requirements. So it's fully compliant, and well, I can't see any reason why people won't be very happy in the property.
Okay, so whilst it is a current HMO, it's actually an unoccupied HMO?
It is only because it's just going to be undergoing this refurbishment, full stop, whether the planning permission's approved or refused. It's going through a refurbishment process.
Thank you.
Of providing ensuite rooms to improve the facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. You mentioned that 4, 6 and 12 were HMOs. Is that right? Is 10 an HMO as well, did you say? It's just 4, 6 and 12? Right. And they all
we've had
licensed?
no objections from anybody as far as I know.
They're all licensed, are they?
They're all licensed HMOs.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any points you wish to come back on?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. At which point now we move to the committee to debate this item. Councillor Rainbird.
Yeah, I'd just like to continue on from what the agent of the applicant said. I can't see any planning consideration why this would be refused. There's been no objections. I'd like to hear everyone's thoughts.
Yes, please, Chair.
Councillor Furman. Yeah.
I'd like to echo Councillor Rainbird's feelings on this. I can't see that 2 applicants are going to make any difference at all to the highway. 2 extra bedrooms, let's say, 2 extra people. The facilities are being upgraded, which I'm pleased to hear. So I can't see any reason to refuse the applicant. I think it should be approved, and I'd like to propose that.
Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. I'd speak against this because I mean, we all know that there's pressures on a number of facilities and amenities in areas where there's a large number of HMOs, and this road is what's very striking is that there's 3 HMOs very, very nearby. It's 4, 6 and 12. And the impact then, you can say, okay, it's just 2 units. But 2 units are 2 units. And you know, there comes a point when the local facilities just cannot take the extra strain of having more residents in those facilities and using the local amenities. The impact is very substantial. So, I mean, you know, I understand about the, you know, all the points that have been made about that people might prefer to have an ensuite shower room in their HMO and forego having a communal lounge and just have a kitchen. But I think that there are also the impacts that have to be looked at on, yes, on the road usage, on the traffic, and I understand that there's not sufficient parking spaces now, but you still have to look at the cumulative impact of the parking and the traffic on that area, and I think that that with actually 4 HMOs in very close proximity to each other, very close indeed, to then increase 1. I mean, it's just 2. It's 2 or it's 50%, depending on how you look at it in terms of the capacity of that HMO. I think puts an unacceptable pressure on the local amenities and facilities, and I would therefore oppose this application.
Councillor Rainbird.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with you. I think, yeah, you're right. I think we, it's always just 2. Oh, it's only just 1. It's just 2. It's just 1. I agree. I think it's going to have impacts on the local area and the local amenities. But again, it comes to people view the property, like to regard the parking issue. to regard to the parking issue, I think obviously the tenants that would possibly move into there would obviously see that the area is not compatible for the everyday driver. So that's why they've added the bike stores. I think that overcomes the issue of the parking. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Yeah, go on. It's conversation.
I mean, I'm quite happy to come back afterwards, but it's not just about parking for the residents, it's about parking of you know, the users who might be coming to that property, or different things going on, but it's pressure on parking spaces, which becomes acute and is very noticeable in an area where you have a lot of HMOs. So it's not just about who wants to go and park there, although there is always a real problem about people who have cars and live in HMOs and need to park them.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's just one car. It's just one car. It's just two cars. Then, like you said, visitors. I'm quite well acquainted with the area, but I can't see it objectively through planning eyes. I don't think we can refuse it, and I don't think it would hold up as appeal. So I'd be inclined to approve the application.
Okay, can I bring in Councillor Cartwright now?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. When's enough? But unfortunately, that the application before us is the extension to basically allow what next door have got. So I don't see that there'd be, you know, as policy compliant. I don't see why there'd be any planning grounds to refuse it in its own right. So I would second the proposal that we go with officer recommendations.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to raise some really... I'd still go back to the... If there are guidance on communal areas that we're not following, then what's the point in having guidance? That's the first thing. And I've got grave concerns that we're providing accommodation which is, frankly, not fit for purpose. I've got another concern with bedroom number 2 in terms of the usable area. There are minimums that's in terms of the square meterage. Bedroom 2 looks to me like it would have major problems in terms of, you know, what is usable area. I'm going to go on to, again, bedroom 3 with a sliding door. And does that comply with fire regs? I mean, it is, most fires start in the household within kitchens. Bedroom 3, the kitchen's going to be a noisy area, so I'm concerned that whoever is staying in bedroom 3 is going to be pretty inconvenienced. I mean, ultimately, we've got a responsibility to provide good housing accommodation to people who live in the area, and I'm not convinced that that complies here.
Councillor Ringwood.
To carry on from your point, Councillor Little, obviously it's a licensed HMO and they've got a certain square meterage they have to meet within rooms. So if the HMO department, well, I might be speaking out of turn, I don't know the exact who deals with it exactly, but like I said, they've got certain square meterage. They do take into consideration fire exits and fire doors. If the doors aren't, I believe, 30-minute fire rated, I do believe that you get a fine per door. That's not obviously compliant, so I don't think that's something we can take into consideration.
Any further comments? Councillor Rainbird, again.
If I can I move to a proposal that would go with officer's recommendation?
Can I just ask some questions before
carry
we vote? One is if they then want to extend into the attic and, you know, have a loft extension, they would have to come back, or I don't know if they have a cellar, but a cellar, would they have to come back? consent for that?
And we'll probably be sitting around here having the same debate.
Sorry, I can't hear.
We'll probably be sitting around here having the same debate. But what's before us is two single-storey extensions.
Okay, but it would have to come back. I mean,
well, that's the case. I mean, I'm not sort of unsympathetic with the views being expressed, but you know, the guidance was introduced in order to help provide control for HMOs in the area. You have an emerging local plan. Perhaps that's the area to be looking at in terms of updating policy with respect to HMOs and learning the lessons from the experience that you've had over the last sort of 10 years or so since the previous guidance was brought into being. But as we stand today, each application on its own merits.
Okay.
It is simply the application before members this evening that you're here to judge.
Okay, and the other question I wanted to ask was that you've got, I mean, obviously we've got the, 10% ratio at the moment, which you say that doesn't apply here because the consent for this HMO was given before that regulation was introduced. Is that right? So it's not operative now.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the guidance was with respect to new HMOs. This is not a new HMO, and indeed, as you've heard from the applicant's agent, it predates the Article 4 direction, so has been in existence for some considerable time.
Okay, and one further question is that because this is also, I mean, it's quite striking that you've got, in fact, you've got 3 HMOs in a row. And then one family house sort of sandwiched in the middle between 2 other HMOs. And that's also an area which has been controversial in terms of HMO policy, but that would also be something that would have to be dealt with under the new regulations. Is that right? If we were to change stuff in the local plan.
Do you mean planning policy rather than regulations?
Yes,
well,
yes,
that's again the matter for the council looking at the emerging local plan and looking at the policies.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, do we have a seconder for the proposal? Yes, Councillor Cartwright. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It was proposed by Councillor Furman a little while ago and seconded by Councillor Cartwright that the application be approved in accordance with the officer's recommendations subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Can I see a show of hands in favour of the proposal? Those against? 2. And any abstentions? 1. Okay, that's approved.
Chair, do you mind if we have 5 minutes? Is that okay?
Yep, certainly, yep. We'll be back again in about 10 minutes for a comfort break.
graduate, so I can delete that one. It's good to see you tonight.
Can I ask, chap left his bag here, it's got quite a lot in it, it's important. Who should it, yeah. No, yeah, but he's got to be in the car in there as well. It's a chap at 21 wide, whatever that road was.
Okay, if everyone's back, we will resume with the committee meeting. So we now move on to item 9, which is 119 Holly Road, Northampton. I'll now hand over to Case Officer Eamon McDowell to begin the presentation.
That's very kind of you, Chairman. The first slide shows that this is an application, 119 Holly Road. The proposal is an application to convert an existing dwelling to 2 self-contained flats, and you'll see from the officer's report that we've assessed the proposal in terms of impact on highway safety, impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties and the principle of development, and concluded the application is acceptable and are accordingly recommending the application be approved. For the benefit of members, we're just showing through the slides. I mean, the site lies within a predominantly residential area. It is a mid-terrace property, and currently it's set up as obviously a normal dwelling, and the proposal is to create 2 flats, a ground floor flat which will have 2 bedrooms, and a first floor flat that will have 3 bedrooms with all the requisite facilities, including a living room, kitchen, and bathroom. There's no external alterations to the property, so it's really a simple change of use, simple subdivision to create a net increase of 1 additional residential unit on site. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair. I know we've just seen the site plans, but just for clarification, I notice inconsistency in the report. On part of the report, it says 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom unit, and elsewhere it says 2-bedroom and 4-bedroom unit. I just wanted to be absolutely sure that the committee knows what we are doing. Thank you. It's the 2 and 4-bedroom bit is in the comments and objections.
Yeah, the officer's report at 1.4 sort of makes clear that this flat 1 would be a 2-bedroom, flat 2 is a 1 3-bedroom flat. I'm looking for the paragraph. There was a paragraph which the officer made clear that there was an amendment to reduce it to a 3-bedroom flat on a first floor level and reintroduce the lounge, and the ground floor is a 2-bedroom flat. Okay.
Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. And this isn't necessarily it's not a material planning consideration. However, it would be helpful to have your comments on this, because it might it might help just think through what the occupancy is likely to be. Isn't it right that under the new Renters' Right Act, that if there's a 3-bedroom flat that's let to 3 adults, and because it's different from an HMO, that the tenancy has to be agreement has to be concluded with each of them? Yeah. The reasons for asking that is because that will affect
not a planning consideration, I'm afraid.
The way it's let. It's not because I'm asking necessarily because it's a consideration with this.
Again, I'm not an expert on that sort of legislation. This is a residential use in a residential area.
And no, that's fine.
The planning guidance is quite clear that you have to assume other regulatory regimes are operating efficiently and effectively.
It just means it's more likely to be a kind of family.
Any further questions from the committee? No. Okay. We will now move on to public speaking in the following order. We've got Ruth Exilby, a local resident. Oh, okay. Simon Exilby, a local resident.
We live next door to this property. On one side of it is a 14-bedroom HMO. Opposite is a residential home. Behind us is a residential home. Next door but one to us is basically an unlicensed HMO. So my concern is this is drip feed HMO, and I'll try and explain why. Firstly, the plans that have been submitted there are inaccurate. There is actually another floor. there is a basement level. So the ground floor flat would actually be a 4-bedroom flat with just adherence to building regulations. The next door HMO has people living in their basement, or at least they're advertising for that. We've converted our basement into a gym. It's an entirely viable thing to do for someone to live in, and I'm sure that the developers know this. So I can't see how it could possibly be approved as a 2-bedroom flat when there's 2 rooms. Anyway, the upstairs flat, I can't see that it could possibly be suitable for family living. There's 3 rooms, 3 bedrooms. They say there's a sitting room. The change between the first application and the second, all they've done is change the name of one room and taken a bed out of the drawing. It's still a 4-bedroom, very high-density living accommodation. There's no outdoor space for the upstairs flat, so I can't see that that's suitable for families. There is 1 tiny bathroom, so I can't see that that's suitable for, it's not going to appeal to families, it's not going to appeal to affluent buyers. I really don't understand what this property is supposed to be for. And in fact, when you look on Rightmove, the only properties in Northampton that are configured for 3 or 4 bedrooms, a kitchen and a tiny bathroom is student housing. So I was saying that the ground floor should be an application for a 4-bedroom flat. Maybe that would be applicable for families because there is some external space. But it really seems to me that this is an application for 8 adults moving into that house. When you've looked at the parking issues, you've said that it's 1 extra residence space. Now, that house was a 5-bedroom family house, and it's now moving into an 8-room adult house. I mean, the developers may argue otherwise, but basically that's an addition of, I would say, 5 cars, and the assessment that's been made by the officer says that it's 1 extra room, so maybe 1 extra car. And this is based on the fact that there's already 2 extra rooms because they've missed off something from the plans. So our concern, and the whole road concern, this is just a drip feed HMO student housing application. That they'll come back once it's done saying, oh, it's unsuitable for other things, it's configured this way, or the only way we can let it, the only way we can sell it is to make it HMO and do all the HMO argument. So to try this out, I actually spoke to the owner and offered him a mutual non-HMO covenant, and he dismissed it. So we know what their intentions are. It's just a matter of time. Now, it sounds all right. People come to you and ask about HMOs, and you grant them because it's a drip feed. As you've mentioned, it's another 2 rooms here, another 2 rooms there, another 2 rooms. So basically, we're already surrounded by very high-density housing. If this isn't an HMO, I mean, it's likely to be let to only adults with much parking problems and all the disruption and noise that we'll get into our house. These walls are not particularly acoustically isolating. There'll be sitting rooms next to our bedrooms. They've also, for the upstairs flat, there is absolutely no space for any refuse. The collections in the street are from polythene bags, so there's no wheelie bins. They have nowhere to put their refuse. They've put a little area next to our little bit of front garden, that's where they're going to keep the refuse. It'll get ripped open by foxes and it'll be all over the street. The plans for the first floor The kitchen area has a window that will directly overlook our garden. Now, okay, that window's always been there, but an upstairs bedroom doesn't have people looking out of it 14 hours a day, standing there doing the washing up, standing in a kitchen. So that will affect the privacy in our garden dramatically.
Yep.
And I guess that's about it. It's a totally unsuitable development to turn a family house into this. And the fact that they've only said that the basement, the ground floor will be 2 bedrooms is really disingenuous to this process.
Thank you very much.
So that's all I have to do.
Questions from the committee? Councillor Rainbird, did you want to go first?
It's more of a question to officers.
Yeah, can we save that for
that's fine.
afterwards? Yeah. Any questions for the speaker, please? No. Okay, thank you very much. We now have Ruth Exelby, who's a local resident.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your time. So where to start is the difficult thing. I know that your work here is to look at the proposal in terms of planning regulations and requirements and making sure it complies with those, but I just want you to bear in mind the impact that these kind of developments have on the local community. I'm sorry, we've just had a really stressful 2 years with the Abington development, where we've had hell for 2 years. It's still not been rectified. We still haven't had the building works done in our house, where they've basically smashed down the whole stairs and landing, whereby they're putting in steels. To think that we've got to go through something similar again, I know they're not application for steels in here and the physical work is very different, but it is hell. And we moved into this home in 2019 with a view to retiring there in a couple of years' time. And we're just getting surrounded by commercial developments, not family homes. And this is not going to be a family home again. And it just seems really unfair that that's the process and we can't do anything about it. We already had 2 nights this week with students' disturbances because we have got homes down there where they are not regulated HMOs, they are student properties, they're not managed correctly, and we've had to put antisocial behavioural orders in all down the street, and it's just becoming more and more common, and I just want that to get across to you that it makes a real impact on residents' lives, and that's not coming out in any of the consultations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee at this point? No. Thank you very much. We've now got a statement from Councillor Zoe Smith, who's the local ward member.
Thank you, Chair. I will now read the statement of Councillor Zoe Smith, and it begins as follows. Firstly, I would like to highlight Councillor Purser's comments on the call-in. No objection is raised to the ground floor flat. Objection is raised to the first floor flat on the basis that it may provide inadequate kitchen and bathroom facilities for the proposed level of occupancy, harming the living conditions of future occupiers. Concerns are also raised regarding the absence of detailed waste management arrangements and insufficient parking provision to accommodate the development, which is considered to be contrary to Policy Q1, Section I of the Northampton Local Plan. Additionally, the committee should consider the constant pattern of extreme occupancy increases in other properties in this road, with a 14-person HMO next door at 22 Abington Grove and a 19-person HMO at the other end at number 1, as well as numerous other flat and HMOs on this road, leading to ever-increasing pressures and antisocial behaviour on this road. Further intensification of occupancy in this property would add to these pressures. And that concludes the statement of Councillor Zoe Smith. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We now have Pat Dooley, who's the agent for the applicants.
Good evening, Chairman, members. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant in support of this application. Regarding the additional room at basement level, that is storage. It does refer to storage on the plan there through the door opening, which is basically a storeroom at the basement. It's got no other purpose for it to be a habitable room or anything of that nature in relation to this development. and maybe, well, hopefully that doesn't attract any attention from the reason why this shouldn't be considered. The proposal before you is straightforward conversion of an existing 5-bedroom dwelling into 2 self-contained flats comprising a 2-bedroom ground floor flat and a 3-bedroom upper floor flat. Importantly, no external alterations are proposed. The appearance of the building will therefore remain unchanged, and the proposal therefore preserves the character and appearance of Holly Road. Members will note that concerns were originally prompted to the call-in by Councillor Purser have been addressed with the amended plans, with the upper flat previously submitted as a 4-bedroom unit to now be a 3-bedroom unit, and the removal of the 1-bedroom allowing the space for a dedicated living room. The result is significantly improved layout, which provides a high standard of accommodation for future occupiers. The upper floor flat now provides 115 square metres of accommodation, and the ground floor flat provides 70 square metres of accommodation. Both flats comfortably exceed the national described space standards and provide good quality living accommodation. A number of the objections appear to stem from concerns that the property may in future become a house of multiple occupation. The applicant is aware of those concerns, however that is not the proposal before members this evening, nor is it the applicant's intention. Had the applicant wished to pursue an HMO, an application for an HMO would have been submitted initially. It also sounds from what I've just heard from the previous speakers that there are a number of HMOs in very close proximity to this, so it's more than likely that the area concentration is already exceeded in this location. Instead, what is before members is an application for 2 self-contained flats with existing residential property. The form of development is common within urban areas and represents an appropriate use of a large dwelling in a sustainable location. Members will also note that the proposal does not increase the overall number of bedrooms within the building. The existing dwelling already contains 5 bedrooms, and the amended proposal continues to provide a total of 5 bedrooms. The proposal therefore represents a reconfiguration of existing accommodation rather than a significant intensification of the use of the property. Parking concerns have also been raised by objectors. However, the existing dwelling already operates as a 5-bedroom house with no off-street parking provision. The local highway authority has carefully assessed the proposal and concluded that the conversion would not result in an unacceptable impact on highway impact, or have they raised any objection. The site occupies a highly sustainable location within easy walking distance of local shops, services, public transport and a racecourse. Not all households require a large family house with a substantial rear garden. Many people actually seek large, nice proportional houses where they have no garden to maintain or keep, and and with the racecourse only being a few minutes walk, they've got extensive outdoor area for amenity. This property has stood vacant for a considerable time and has unfortunately fallen into a poor state of repair. Approval of this application would bring a long-term empty building back into beneficial use, secure investment in the property and provide 2 quality homes in a suitable urban location. Finally, members have any remaining concerns regarding refuge or cycle storage. These matters have already been addressed through the conditions recommended by the officers and can be satisfactorily resolved prior to occupation. For these reasons, having regard to the officer's recommendation, the absence of objections from the Highway Authority, Environmental Health, Natural England, and the amendments made during the planning application process, I respectfully ask members to support this application and follow the officer's recommendation and approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Can you tell me what you're doing with the storage room? Are you tanking it out? Could it be used as habitation, or is it?
It could be quite easily used as a gym if wanted. I don't know what the intentions would be for that use, but it is just storage as far as we're concerned. And to be another room, it's in the basement. It's highly unlikely to be a room that would be acceptable from natural daylight point of view.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Breeze.
Thank you. We heard from the previous speaker about, one about the sort of acoustic problems and noise transmission through communal walls. Are there any proposals in this to increase the insulation to mitigate against any
if approved, the application would be carried out, it would require building regulations approval, and that would be something that would be dealt with under the building regulations requirements. It's not really part of what I need to consider at this time of planning. So, but it would require a building regulations approval, and they would request it if needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Any further questions from the committee for the speaker?
Okay.
No, thank you. Okay, are there any points you wish to come back on this stage?
Again, I think you've heard reference to the basement. There are no drawings with the submission that indicates what's being proposed. If members are concerned about that, you could condition it to require it to be retained for storage purposes only, and that would afford you the opportunity of assessing any potential alternative use coming forward.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Keeble, do you want to ask your questions?
Yeah, thank you. First, I wonder if the office could just repeat that last bit of what you said. I didn't hear it. We have got some interference.
It's probably the accent. There are no drawings on the presentation this evening that indicate the basement that's been referred to. Clearly the agent has indicated that it'll be used for storage only. If members were minded to grant permission, it could be the subject of a further condition to effectively require details of the basement and its retention as a storage area only, and that would afford the local planning authority the opportunity of assessing any alternative uses other than use of storage in connection with the ground floor flat.
Thank you. The other thing was, there's been this question raised about the fourth bedroom that became the sitting room upstairs. Is that, I mean, if it's in an ordinary 3-bedroom flat, there's nothing to stop somebody using the sitting room as a bedroom, is there? You can't.
Again, no, it doesn't involve development. We can only determine the application before us. The floor plans indicate 3 bedrooms and a living room area with kitchen.
Fine. And the final thing is that, I mean, it's interesting that this one is being converted into 2 flats, and I note that the agent remarked that it probably already exceeds the limit for HMOs. But if it were at some stage in the future to be converted to, or the owner was minded to convert it into an HMO, it would presumably have to come back for a full application, would it?
You're correct, yeah.
Councillor Ware.
Just building on my colleague's comment about the basement issue, should a 3-bedroomed ground floor flat be built on a 2-bedroomed permission, that's an enforcement issue, isn't it? It's not in line with if council is minded to approve and it's built that way, that would be an enforcement issue.
Yeah, if committee were minded to impose that condition, bearing in mind that all conditions imposed permissions have to meet tests and can be challenged by the applicant. So if, for example, a condition was imposed requiring that basement to be used solely as a storage area and it was subsequently used for something different, then that would be a breach of that condition. Assuming that condition, we could demonstrate that met the test. I think in this particular circumstance, you don't have that information before you. A condition would secure that. The alternative is you defer the application and require the agent and applicant to provide full details of the basement and what their intentions are, so you have a full picture of what's proposed for that area. But I think in the circumstances, a condition would be sufficient.
I would certainly support seeing that condition.
Any further questions, or should we move straight to debate? Councillor Rainbird.
Yeah, I think a condition would be ideal for the situation. Obviously, if we didn't put a condition in, there's nothing stopping the space being tanked, boarded, and being used as a third bedroom, then obviously, yeah, I think a condition for it to not be used as a habitable space is very fair.
Yeah, again, through you, Chairman, you don't have those details before you, so I think it's perfectly reasonable to require those details as part of the condition, and the reason for that is to give the local planning authority the ability to assess its use as an additional bedroom or whatever.
So would you say to defer until we have that information, Eamon? Sorry.
That's what you've got to debate through you, Chairman. I've put two alternatives to you. Yeah. I mean, it's up to yourselves which way you want to go down. I think a condition's reasonable and pragmatic in this instance, but equally, if members are that concerned about no, that's for you to debate and determine.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Eamon.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Well, while being extremely sympathetic to the speakers and understanding, you know, that their issues and what may happen in the future, on planning grounds, I can't see any reason that this shouldn't go through. But I would definitely agree that rather than waste time, we put that condition on now that the officer can go through that with the applicant, and we have the condition that it's used for storage only or not habitable space, and I would be leaning towards approving it now with that condition on.
Any additional comments from Councillor Ware?
I've got two. One is linked to Councillor Smith's comment about this doesn't meet with Q1 Section I waste management, and that gives me cause for concern. I am also concerned about the amenity of the neighbourhood garden. I take very clearly the point that whilst a bedroom has overlooked that garden for some considerable time, one does not normally stare out of one's bedroom, but one might stare out of one's living room, especially if there's no outdoor space. So I am a little bit concerned about the amenity for the neighbours.
Again, through you, Chairman. I mean, it's a window on the end of an outrigger. There's mutual overlooking of gardens along that entire terrace. I don't consider that a kitchen window would add or detract significantly to warrant a different outcome, even though it was a kitchen as opposed to a bedroom window.
Any further comments? Councillor Keeble?
I would just say, I mean, I can completely understand the concerns of the residents about the increasing residential density in that area, which wasn't designed for that kind of usage, and which causes severe difficulties for the residents who live there, you know, in terms of traffic, waste management, antisocial behaviour. I have to say that in planning terms, it's impossible to see how the subdivision of a large family home into two flats can be objected to, and I think that's what gives us some real difficulties. With the condition, of course, that's already been described of the basement not being used as habitable space. It's important that if the building was then to be turned into HMOs, and I mean there are some really big HMOs round about, that would come back, so it would be possible to have a look at it again. I think that's helpful, but I think that on strict planning grounds, with that condition, we unfortunately, I think that I would reluctantly, but go with the officer recommendation.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think it is unfortunate. We obviously great deal of sympathy for the residents, but on purely planning basis, I'm not sure this can be refused, subject to the conditions.
Are we going to move to a proposal then? Anyone going to make a proposal? Councillor Cartwright.
Yes, Chair, through you, propose to accept the officer recommendations to approve this with the seller
Condition
that I'm not sure how to word it, that it doesn't be a living space or that it remains as a storage space.
Again, through you, Chairman, it would be a case of ensuring that we have details of that and it's retained as a storage area on the basis that that information hasn't been before the council.
Yeah.
The reason for that would be the reason for imposing it and to afford the council the opportunity of assessing an alternative use or alternative use other than storage.
Thanks, but I mean, we can leave that in your hands.
Yeah.
We can do that now. Yes, please, with that.
You can trust Eamon. Do we have a seconder for this proposal? Councillor Furman, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Cartwright and seconded by Councillor Furban that the application be approved in accordance with the officer's recommendation, subject to the addition of a condition requiring the applicant to provide full details of the basement and its proposed use and to prevent its use as a habitable space, with exact wording of the condition to be delegated to officers. Thank you, Chair.
Can I see a show of hands in favour of the proposal? Those against? Abstentions? 1. And that's approved. Subject to conditions. Okay. Your turn.
Bring a rosy, see how.
And drink my drink.
I'll ninja underneath, thanks. Might damage itself.
Chair, or chairs, through whichever one of these is now relevant, can I, thank you for allowing me to speak out of turn, can I encourage you, in the interest of the residents who come to represent on the final item, you consider reordering the items on the basis that there is a time constraint and the place is to be shut at 9. I don't know how long.
What's to be shut at 9, sorry?
The guy on the desk has said he's the last one in, it needs to be
No, don't. What should we finish?
He's finishing at 9. That's what he said.
He's, we are conducting council business, so he will be here for as long as he's required. Thank you. We should be done by.
Okay. Okay, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, okay, we'll move on with item 10 at 86 Windsor Crescent, Northampton, and I will now ask the case officer, McDowell, to begin the presentation, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Again, as you'll see from the slide, this is an application for a single-storey rear extension, a two-storey side extension, loft conversion with rear dormers, together with a new hard standing with drop curb, which is part retrospective. Next slide shows the site in context. It's primarily a residential area, but as you'll see on the location plan, immediately to the, I'm going to say to the west, there's a small set of commercial properties, including takeaways and a local off license, I think it is, when I viewed it on my research. To the east, I'm going to say, is existing residential properties. The subject property is a semi-detached property, and the proposal is, as I say, to extend it with a two-storey side extension, and immediately adjoining the adjoining neighbour would be a rear projecting single-storey extension, projecting just beyond the neighbour's existing conservatory. On top of that, then there will be a conversion of the roof space to include a dormer extension to provide roof top accommodation in the roof space. The next sets of slides show the existing floor plans. As I say, traditional semi-detached property, and as you'll see, it's set at an angle to the commercial properties to the side. And again, the next slides show the existing elevation plans. So as I say, fairly relatively modest property, but it does sit within a relatively large plot. And the proposal, just the next slide, is a block roof plan. Again, which shows the proposals. And if I go to the next slide, which shows the proposed roof plans. So the single-storey element is going to involve basically a sort of wraparound to provide an improved kitchen area and garage space on the ground floor. And then the middle set of floor plans show the rooftop of the rear projecting single-storey extension with a large lantern light, sort of providing natural light into that area. The two-storey side extension provides get the specs on here. 2 bedrooms with a side-facing bathroom, which will be obscure glazed. And then the far right-hand slide shows the roof space accommodation, which will provide a dormer with stairwell access up, and the dormer will have a Juliet balcony overlooking the rear single-storey extension. Next slide shows the proposed elevational plans. As you see, the application is set back and set down relative to the main dwelling in a way that we consider it to be subservient to that dwelling. It does project further back into the site to provide the sort of projecting into the rear garden area. And in terms of the side elevation facing the commercial property, you'll have a first floor obscure glazed bathroom window, side door, and a ground floor window. There is a roof light serving the roof space on the two-storey element. In terms of the rear elevation, again, you'll see there's a Juliet balcony serving the dormer extension, and below that is the lantern providing natural daylight to the rear extension. And then ground floor to the rear of the two-storey extension, you'll have ground floor patio doors and a window serving the kitchen area with a bedroom window directly above. Some photographs now just showing the application property. You'll see that some work is commenced in respect to the front driveway. The right-hand photograph shows other properties in the area that have been extended with similar type dormer extensions. And then the next photograph shows the rear elevation. As I say, the right-hand photograph, you'll see the property with a very large extraction system. You can also see partially hidden by that gazebo, that temporary gazebo, the lean-to conservatory on the adjoining neighbouring property. And again, it's a fairly large rear garden that extends away from the property, much in the same way as the adjoining neighbours. So the application's been assessed, as I say, in terms of its impact on the neighbouring properties, impact on highway safety. And given that it's, in principle, a residential extension to an existing residential property, we judge it to be acceptable and accordingly recommended for approval, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the officer, please? Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Just for clarification, I've noticed several elements are secured by condition. Could you confirm whether it is entirely ancillary use to the main dwelling, or whether there are any features that it would allow it to be used independently as a separate unit, and whether any conditions or safeguards are needed to ensure it remains part of the main dwelling? Thank you.
Again, through you, Chairman, the application before me is an application for an extension to an existing dwelling. There are no proposals to subdivide or create a separate planning unit. So it remains a single dwelling with ancillary accommodation serving that dwelling.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll move on to the speakers now, and we have Councillor East, who is the ward member.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak from the other side of the room. I'd like to talk about 86 Windsor Crescent. It's a semi-detached property with a southeast facing front and a northwest facing rear garden. The adjacent property to the left of number 86 is a south-southeast facing property with a north-northwest facing garden. Number 86 is slightly offset and angled from the adjacent property. This means that the two properties are angled slightly inwards towards each other. The main concerns are that the development of the two-storey extension and the roof dormer conversion will be overbearing and will cause a loss of privacy and amenity. Starting with the dormer, which has a Juliet balcony and a double-glazed French doors, is a concern as it will overlook the adjoining property, which has a conservatory at the rear, as well as overlook the garden, causing a loss of privacy. The two-storey extension, given the alignment of the property and the protruding of the two-storey extension rearwards, would cause extended periods of overshadowing of the adjacent property's conservatory as the sun moves, to the adjoining property's conservatory as the sun moves to the west. Furthermore, the two-storey extension front will be built up to the boundary fence, considering the length and the height of the extension. This will have an overbearing impact on the property to the left, resulting in a loss of amenity. Given the potential impact of this development will have on both neighbouring properties, it is my opinion that the proposed application does not conform with policy Q2 of the Northampton Local Plan Part 2. I therefore urge the committee to reject this application.
Thank you for that. Any of the members have any questions for the speaker, please? Councillor Ware.
Just to help me get my head around this, the amenity that you're concerned about is the attached house, the semi-detached house in terms of loss of light and loss of amenity for the house that's on the other side, the not attached, the detached.
That's right, to the left of the property, so we're looking from the front. So,
but am I correct in thinking that neighbour is actually a commercial property?
It's downstairs. There's obviously I think it's a fish and chip shop, or is upstairs. I believe there's obviously a residential area.
Okay, with the big extractor thing at the side of it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Move the committee to debate the application, please. Anybody? Councillor Keeble. Yeah.
Could we have the officers' comments
Anything to come back
on the points about loss of amenity, etc.?
Well, they're contained within the report. We're recommending it for approval. I mean, the two-storey element is set sufficiently off the boundary to not adversely impact on the adjoining neighbouring property. You'll see from the photographs, we just go to the rear photograph, the one that shows have you got that up? Yeah, I mean, again, the sun moves, so shadows move across. But you'll see in terms of that, it's a very bright sunny day, and the detached, the flat above the commercial property is already in shadow. So we would contend that the impact of the two-storey extension, albeit closer to that boundary, would not be sufficient to warrant refusal in terms of any additional loss of light. Yes, there's going to be an impact. Any extension has an impact on the amenity of neighbours, but our judgment in this particular case is that that impact is acceptable in planning terms, and accordingly that's why we're recommending it for approval.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ware?
Eamon, would you be kind enough to put the plans back up on the screen for me?
I'll ask my assistant, Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Loud, would you please be kind enough? Thank you.
I mean, yeah, it's a big extension. There's lots going on there, but I think whilst there are concerns about how it impacts it, I think it's been designed in a way to minimise or mitigate its impact. So the adjoining neighbour is affected by a single-storey extension that doesn't project much more beyond the existing conservatory.
Thank you. That's what I wanted clarification of. So the actual, where the lantern light is, that is a single storey.
That's correct.
And it's a two-storey, as I'm looking at it, to the left of that lantern light.
Yeah, that middle set of floor plans shows the roof of the single-storey extension.
Yeah.
And basically the floor plan of the two-storey extension. So it's set as far away from the adjoining boundary as you can get.
Yeah.
And whilst it projects beyond the rear of both semis, it's sufficiently far enough away from that boundary not to impact in terms of the 45-degree rule as was used to apply at Daventry, or the 65-degree rule. And it's, again, set away. The commercial properties, it's coming closer to that, but it's a first-floor flat already in shadow. There's a degree of separation. We're being trumpeted here, but we think it's a comfortable relationship between that and the neighbour in that sense.
Thank you. Yeah. So near the neighbour that's a semi, that's a single storey. The doubles at the other side. Okay. Then, Councillor Little, please.
Thank you, Chair. As we're talking about loss of amenity, we've got the Juliet balcony. That's up on that's going to be on the second floor, so it's going to have quite clear views over the neighbouring garden. Is that obviously been taken into consideration? But is that not a concern?
It's not a concern in that there's already mutual overlooking between both properties, and the addition of that Juliet balcony, so it means somebody can't sort of walk out of that room and look straight down at the neighbour. It's looking across the rear gardens. I don't know, can you put the location plan up again? Sorry, Nathan. How's that? So it's looking down the length of the garden, and there's an obscure view towards the neighbour. But if you go to the photographs, again, you'll see. You see there's already mutual overlooking from first floor bedrooms.
Yeah, but we're talking about a second floor.
Yeah, that's a judgment call. Our judgment is it's acceptable for those reasons. Your judgment may be different, but you then have to sustain that at an appeal. What I would say is there's mutual overlooking, as would be common in these sorts of areas.
Yeah, I would say that Juliet balcony is just a glorified window. It's not an you can't walk out onto it and look around. Sorry, yeah, Councillor McMurtry.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's perfect timing.
Just speak up.
Yeah, you know, on balance, like I said, you know, it is mutually overlooking. I don't deem the damage to be significant enough to warrant refusal. So on that basis, I'd be happy to follow officer's recommendation, and I will propose that.
And I'm happy to second that.
Oh, that one quick. Okay, does anybody have anything else to say? Anybody want to talk against it? No. Okay, thank you. Can I ask you to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chair. If you can all hear me, it is proposed by Councillor McMurtry and seconded by Councillor Ware that the application be approved in accordance with the officer recommendations, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All who want to vote in favour, please raise your hands. Do some counting.
8.
Yep.
Against?
Against, please. 1. Abstentions? 1. Okay. In that case, thank you very much. That's approved. And before we move on to the next item, we're going to dance quickly.
We now move on to item 11, which is 34 Knightscliff Way, Northampton. I'll now hand over to Case Officer Andrew McCreel to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Item 11, 34 King's Knightscliff Way. Knightscliff Way. Through the Chair, this is a retrospective application for a detached outbuilding which has been constructed in the rear garden of number 34, which is a detached bungalow in Duston. The building is described as an annex incidental to the enjoyment of the dwelling. The building is situated to the rear of the garden. It has a flat roof and an overall height of approximately 3 metres with stone elevations. Concerns have been raised by the ward councillor as well as the parish council and 3 neighbouring properties regarding the size of the building, its impact, as well as its use and whether it will be a separate unit of accommodation. There's also been actually one letter in support of the application. The top of the building is visible from adjoining properties. That photo there is from the rear of a property on Edge Hill Road. It's higher than fence line, which is why it's visible. However, it's not considered to be significantly intrusive as it's a single-storey building and it's not considered to have an overbearing impact which would justify a refusal. There are limited views of the building in the street scene. That's looking at the front. You can see there's a garage to the side and the building is just behind it. To conclude, therefore, it's considered that the building does not harm the character and amenities of the area. Committee are therefore recommended to approve the application for the retention of the building with a condition to ensure that its use and occupation remains ancillary to the main dwelling and it's not occupied as a separate residential unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee at this stage? Yep, Councillor Keeble.
I wonder if you could just clarify exactly what you mean by a separate residential unit, because are you saying it can't be used at all, or it could be used occasionally? I mean, there's a common sense understanding, but are there any particular issues around what that usage would mean? You're thinking of like a granny flat or somewhere that people can use for holidays?
Through the Chair, from the planning point of view, we would be concerned not to effectively create a separate residential or planning unit on that site. That if it is to be retained, it should always be retained ancillary to the main house.
Councillor Ringbird.
I'd just like to ask, how come it's retrospective? Did the applicant just not know that they needed permission, or what was the case, do you know?
I think it came about as an enforcement investigation, and yes, it would seem that the applicant was not aware of the height limitation for a outbuilding which could be permitted development if it was not exceeding 2.5 metres within 2 metres of the boundary.
So is that the reason why it's so how far out of permitted
Well,
development?
it's approximately 3 metres tall.
And what's permitted development to?
2.5 metres.
Okay, thank you.
For a flat roof building.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. What's the... does this, if this is approved, does this set a precedent for other properties in the area? Is there going to be a likelihood that...
Through the Chair, I would say that many dwellings in Northampton anywhere have outbuildings. It's a normal form of development. How they are used exactly, well, it could be a hobby room, could be just a summer house, but as an outbuilding, I don't think it is in any way sort of having adverse impact on the character of the area.
Sorry, Chair, if I may. Yes, I agree that outbuildings are popular in people's gardens, but they tend to comply to the regulations of being below 2.5 metres, not having a kitchen, bedroom and bathroom. This isn't a hobby room, this is someone's accommodation.
Through the Chair, that is why this building is before committee, because it exceeds the permitted development heights and therefore a full application is needed.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. But yeah, just for clarification, it's a bit too tall. No, did I not press it on? Sorry. It's a bit taller than permitted development would allow. The principle of it being a living accommodation in itself isn't really in question, but just that would always remain ancillary to the property, so you couldn't have, you know, a separate house and sell that off. That's what you're talking about here, yeah?
Through the Chair, the recommendation to approve is on the basis that it will be conditioned, that it will be retained as ancillary to the house.
Councillor Little.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to this one. When I talked about a precedent, are we going to have a precedent now with buildings being 3 metres tall and the
Again, through you, Chairman, the precedent is not a material planning consideration as such. You judge each application on its own merits, so the decision you make here doesn't prejudice any future decisions or future applications, either for or against it. You'll judge those applications on their individual merits. And indeed, members will remember not so long ago we had a couple of outbuildings here and we had deferred for site visits on exactly the same or similar cases and concerns. So each application, see it as it comes, judge it as it comes, and make your decision.
If I remember correctly, that building that we went to inspect was 2.8 metres tall. Any further questions for the from the officers? No. Okay. We will now move to public speaking in the following order. Councillor Hayley Adkins has provided her apologies. She was unable to attend the meeting remotely and hasn't prepared a statement. So we'll now move to a verbal statement from Councillor Vincent Clive, who's the local ward member.
Good evening, everyone. The big issue here, in my view, is whether this is a dwelling or an outbuilding, and it is not an outbuilding. And I wish to object to the officer recommendation for approval. And the case turns on well-established and critical planning principle. When does an annex cease to be ancillary and become a separate dwelling? Both policy and case law are unequivocal on this point, and this proposal fails that test. In planning law, whether something is ancillary is not a matter of description, it is a matter of fact and degree. The courts and inspectors have consistently held that a unit is a separate planning unit if it is capable of independent occupation, regardless of the applicant's stated intention or any conditions applied. The presence of facilities for independent day-to-day living is the primary indicator. In Uttlesford DC versus Secretary of State and White 1991, it was established that the creation of a unit capable of independent occupation constitutes a material change to an additional dwelling, even if it is described as ancillary. Similarly, the widely applied Gravesham principle confirms Where a building contains its own kitchen, bathroom and living space and can function independently, it is likely to form a separate planning unit. Regardless, this specific proposal, and I use the word proposal loosely given the retrospective nature of the application, members must focus on what has actually been built and not how it is described. This structure contains a kitchen, a bathroom, a toilet and a bedroom or living space. And I notice you flashed up the floor plan very, very quickly. I'd like you to put that back on the screen, please. These are the full components of independent residential accommodation. Case law and appeal decisions consistently show that where those facilities exist, the building is tantamount to a new dwelling rather than an ancillary annex. This is reinforced by appeal decisions where inspectors have concluded that providing facilities for independent day-to-day living results in the creation of a self-contained dwelling. Conditions cannot override physical reality. It is likely that the officer recommendation here relies heavily on the condition restricting the occupancy to ancillary use. However, case decisions show that the physical characteristics of a building carry more weight than the imposed restrictions. A unit that is capable of independent occupation will be treated as such in planning terms, in tribunal and planning decisions, even where conditions exist. The suitability of the unit for independent living, including kitchen and bathroom facilities, is a decisive factor. In other words, you cannot condition away a second dwelling where one has effectively been created, and the conditions imposed would fail to be upheld in practice. Turning to the development plan, under the WNC JCS, policy H1 requires new housing to be properly planned and assessed. Policy BN3 requires honest, functional design. Policy BN5 resists over-intensive use and protects amenity. The proposal conflicts with all three. It introduces a new dwelling outside the plan-led framework. It misrepresents its function as ancillary, contrary to good design, and it intensifies the site, contrary to BN5. There is also significant behavioural and procedural harm because the building has been constructed without permission. It is now presented with built-in features that strongly point to independent occupation, and this aligns with a pattern identified in practice. Development is built with full residential capability first, then described as ancillary later to avoid scrutiny. Planning guidance is clear. Retrospective applications must be judged on merit, but they must not be used to legitimise unacceptable development. Members can therefore apply a simple but powerful test drawn from case law. If it walks like a dwelling and functions like a dwelling, then it is a dwelling. In this case, all facilities for independent living are present, the unit is physically and functionally self-contained, and the supposed ancillary link is simply not credible in planning terms. I am surprised that our planning officers are relying on it as part of the recommendations to approve. The harms are very clear. Creation of a second dwelling without policy scrutiny, conflict with policies H1, BN3, BN5, undermining of the plan-led system, and approval would set a dangerous precedent. There are no countervailing benefits that outweigh this. This is not a marginal or technical issue. It goes to the integrity of the planning system, and I therefore ask you to reject the recommendation and refuse the permission. I would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have on the planning law or how these developments progress where they have been refused and subsequently appealed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Councillor Rainbird.
Obviously, permitted development rights say 2.5 metres were within...
Not for a dwelling. Not for a dwelling, and that is a dwelling. Okay. If it was an outbuilding, yes, it's not an outbuilding, it's a dwelling. Look at the...
Chair, I would actually quite like to hear what the question was before I heard the answer. I wasn't quite clear what Councillor Rainberg's entire question was going to be.
My apologies.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yep.
I was going to say, permitted development says 2.5. Obviously, this is 3 metres. If it was 500 mil less compliance with permitted development, what would your opinions be?
It's not permitted development because it is not an outbuilding, it is a dwelling as defined by the availability of the rooms inside it.
Okay, thank you.
Therefore, it's not applicable.
Any further questions from the committee for the speaker? Nope. Thank you very much. At this point, are any points you wish to come back on?
Yeah, just through you, Chairman. The applications before you, you've heard various interpretations as to whether it is or it isn't a dwelling. That's a matter for you to judge. equally, you can defer to go and see it for yourselves on site and make a judgment. Ultimately, whether you conclude it is or isn't a dwelling, you then have to decide what is the planning harm in terms of impact on residential amenity, etc. And officers have judged the proposal to be acceptable in that regard. Again, in my experience, I've dealt with many granny flats and self-contained accommodations within the curtilage of other dwellings. They've been approved. Some have been allowed an appeal. Some have been refused an appeal. It's over to you guys to make a judgment on this particular one. But the recommendation before you is to approve the structure as built, because there is a lack of identified harm on residential amenity, and the securing it as basically as a self-contained unit within the curtilage of the existing dwelling will retain its functionality in association with the main dwelling on site. If somebody chooses then to occupy it separately, that would be a matter for future investigations by the council, if members are minded to agree the recommendation this evening.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. A little more clarification on this. If somebody went to that building, had the utilities, water, gas, electric, whatever they've got, on a separate meter on their own, and it was to be an independent building, that will cause issues because they would need fresh planning permission for that, or appeal to go if it was minded to be approved as it stands now?
Yeah, again, if the condition was imposed and it turned out that somebody was occupying it independently from the main dwelling, that would be a matter for investigation and potentially a subsequent application. But no, that's not before us.
Sorry, just to come back on that then. So, if it's 500 mil smaller, would we be here? Is this permitted development just on the sides, or because of what's...
Ken, we're talking about the physical. There's two separate elements here. There's physical development in terms of constructing outbuildings under Class E. Those are ancillary or incidental buildings. And then there's the point that Councillor Clive has indicated, which is whether it's a independent dwelling. And he's quoted a lot of case law, etc. I'm not a planning barrister. I'm looking at the building. I haven't been to the site. I'm looking at the proposal. To my mind, it is tantamount to a granny flat of sorts that's capable of providing self-contained accommodation, albeit within the curtilage of the main dwelling. And it's not uncommon for elderly relatives or those requiring some degree of independence living to live within the curtilage of a main dwelling and still have the benefit of and the support of the family living in the main house. But I don't know those particular circumstances. We're simply assessing this on its physical presence within the curtilage and what's shown on the approved plans. Again, if members have any doubt or any concerns about how it relates or how it functions in the context of its surroundings, you're perfectly free to go and have a look at it on site. I would caution a risk assessment before you go on there, judging by some of the photographs. But
I think Councillor Rainbow was before you, but we'll come on to you after Councillor Rainbow.
So I think, like Eamon said, I think we've got to take this as it is. Now we've got to decide, is it an outbuilding or is it a completely separate dwelling? If it was an outbuilding, 500 or less, it'd be under permitted development rights and we wouldn't be here tonight. A separate dwelling, then we would be here. So I think we've got to go to the site and see what impact it actually is having. If it's having very minimal impact, like officers and the case report says, then I'm inclined to go with officer's recommendation. If we then turn up to site and think that it's having a really adverse effect onto neighbours, and then I'd be inclined to refuse it. But I think an on-site evaluation is required for this one.
Councillor Keeble.
Thank you. I mean, I don't actually agree with that because I think a visit would be disproportionate, and I'm not sure it would give us more information than we've already got, which I think is adequate to make a decision on this. And I would go with the officer's recommendations on this, and there's a few reasons for it. First off, because it's a general principle as councillors, I appreciate that, you know, all of us are experts in all kinds of different fields, but as councillors, members of council, we have to go with the officer's advice, actually, and particularly when it comes to matters of finance and matters of law. You know, we can put in our own views, but it's not always such a clever idea. Ultimately, of course, it's neither, you know, one of us who thinks we're an expert or the officers which will actually determine what the law says. That's always through the courts. But we have to rely on the advice. And I think that, you know, the officers have advised that this is capable of being approved, you know, as it stands, and that we don't have to turn it down. We can give the retrospective approval, and it's capable of being judged to be an ancillary building to the main building, and I would certainly accept that. I mean, looking at it, it must be in line with what exists in quite a few places. People might put a elderly relative in as a student. If you've got a teenager who needs somewhere to live, it's part of the main property, which actually, looking at it, isn't such a big property. So it's perfectly understandable that in those circumstances you get a property like that. I agree, it's unfortunate that they've got the height of the ceiling wrong and such like, but I actually think that is perfectly acceptable as an ancillary part of the main building, and that we should approve it on that basis.
Councillor Ware, did you want to?
Yeah, I would welcome the condition that you've put on as ancillary. But if you took the words off there, and to Councillor Cartwright's point, it has electricity, it has plumbing. I know plenty of garages that have got electricity and plumbing that are huge, and some of them also have an outdoor toilet. So, you know, there is a huge assumption, which may be right or might not be right, that it's a granny flat or a teenage kid's bolt hole. But actually, I'm minded to go with officers' advice on this. I think it is unfortunate that it's 50 centimetres too tall. But I'm minded to go with officers' advice with the condition that it remains ancillary to the main dwelling.
Councillor Rainbird.
Yeah, I take your points. But as Councillor Clive has said, there's a difference between an outbuilding and a separate dwelling. Obviously, he's quoted case law. Again, I'm no expert in that. I'm sure I can ask Councillor Clive for some more information. But I think we're rushing to a decision. I don't think that. Yes, you are right. But if we did refuse it, I believe we could have a leg to stand on if we had the correct information that I dare say Vincent Clive will happily provide for us. Yeah, I believe a site visit would be best, but obviously you guys said it's probably not beneficial, but I'd like to hear what other people think.
Councillor McMurtry.
Yeah, I did just want to clarify, like, do we have an additional speaker?
No.
We don't have an additional speaker registered, no?
Sent me an email, I responded, Kim Kerr, I'm here to speak. I responded to the email I received, that's why I'm here.
Which email did you receive?
The one about this meeting today.
Yeah. And then I wanted to provide comments after we've clarified this, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, she did. You sent me an email telling me about the meeting today. If anybody wanted to speak, 2 people could speak for and 2 people could speak against. I replied straight away, and that's why I'm here.
So she's replied directly to the consultation letter on the 10th of June.
Okay.
So it's been received, it's not been received by the correct
Okay.
people, so we can hear her if you wish, Chair.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to allow you a chance to speak.
Through you, Chair, just to clarify for the public record that the individual has replied to the consultation letter with a request to speak. This was received on the 10th of June and therefore was received in time. It just was not received in the correct place in order for inclusion onto the speakers list. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Proceed.
Thank you. Retrospective planning is the reason I'm here this evening, and my colleagues and the neighbours. The house, the bungalow, whatever you want to call it, the dwelling, is 50 centimetres from my boundary. It's taller than it should be. Now, with plumbing, sewage, flat roof or otherwise, should it be that close to my boundary, the boundary between the two properties? If it's that tall, I do not believe it should be. Their bathroom window, their utility room, you don't have a utility room unless you're going to put a washing machine in it, is right next to the bottom of my garden. Has drainage, has a sewer been nominated? Has it all been done properly? When the footings were down, I objected at the time and sent you photos of the plumbing and the piping and the sewage. Has that all been looked at properly? Has it been visited? It's obviously too tall. The whole purpose of people building things without permission is to get to this point where you all sit here and say, yes, it can go ahead because it's ancillary. If you look at the planning for 34 for the bungalow, they are going to build that into a house. They're going to put an extra storey on top of the original bungalow at 34 Knightscliff Way, and guess where they're going to live whilst doing it? In the building at the bottom of the garden. It's an abomination. It looks like a prison. It's far too big for the area. You can see it from the road. In the pictures that you've taken, you can't see it from the road. If you take it from the next door neighbour the other side, on Wenlock Way, you can see it glaringly obvious. It's like a prison. I am not happy with retrospective planning because people use it as an out to get what they want. And I think if you're not going to follow the rules shouldn't be there. If the rules aren't appropriate to apply for planning for sewage, drainage, a toilet, a kitchen, a bathroom, an area to live, then why do you have these rules and why are we sitting here now? They built it because they knew they would get it through. It is going to be lived in because they are building an extension to the original bungalow on that land. So they are going to live in it. Am I within my rights to object to having a toilet and a washing machine next 50 centimetres? What is the distance from a boundary for a dwelling that has all those facilities? It's not 50 centimetres. It's at least 2.5 to a metre away from the boundary. It's not. The materials used are meant to be, if it's closer than a metre or up to the boundary, the materials used in building it are meant to be non-flammable. The roof is made of wood. I am facing the bottom of it. It's at the side of my garden. The neighbours on either side of it must be horrified. It is not what it started off. The planning started as a garden room. It then became into a granny annex. And now it's a full living dwelling that people will live in whilst they are making amendments and making the bungalow into a house, which is not in keeping with that planning application with the area. The whole oval of bungalows on Knightscliff and Edgehill, because they join, nobody else has got that in their back garden. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you remain seated for a moment? Sorry, any questions? Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, sorry.
No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, are there any points the officers wish to come back on at this point?
No, other than you've obviously got the planning regime and you've got the building regulations regime, and some of the matters being raised would fall within the building regulations regime. Again, we can check with those colleagues on those particular points raised, but this is primarily a land use matter and a development of the land matter under relevant planning policy.
Okay, Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Now we've heard the objections. Now I'm more keen to go back to Councillor Rainbird's idea of a site visit to see if it's a monstrosity as is claimed, or if it's, you know, a little bit above what it should be. I think now that we have residents' opinions that this is a material consideration for them, for their amenity, I think that we should perhaps go and have a look at it. Thank you.
Councillor Furman.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Speaker. We often see this now, that people start building and just presume the planning permission will be given later. It's just they can just consider it that it's just something that will happen, and I don't think this is right. And the fact it's too high, and with the drainage, I would even question, has the building inspectorate been there and described this as an annex incidental? I do have concerns that the facilities shown, floor plan of the building, this could function independently. I'm not able to support this application. I would propose refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of points. Just to echo, I think it might be worth this committee going to see the application. Personally, I'd be minded to refuse this application for the various comments that have been made, but I think a good step would probably be to actually carry out a site visit.
Any further comments from Councillor Ware?
Are officers able to confirm this issue of boundary and whether this building as it stands now, is it 50 centimetres from the boundary? Has it had any permission to build up to the boundary line? And should we be taking into account the 2 metres height, 2 metres from the boundary, given the height of it?
I have been to the site. I haven't actually measured the distance from the boundary. It probably varies. On that photo there, it would appear to be possibly 30 centimetres from the boundary. This photo, probably a bit closer. Certainly the way that the roof overhangs, that roof overhang is very close to the boundary of the adjoining property on, I think it would be 32, possibly. So it's certainly within 2 metres of the boundary. Through the chair, I would advise that when we're talking about the height, it's only too high in terms of the permitted development rights. You know, the fact that it is higher than 2.5 metres has triggered this full application. It is for well, obviously initially planning officers to determine whether that height is acceptable, and the officer's report recommends approval.
I fully appreciate that issue of the height. What I'm concerned about now is the distance from the boundary and whether this application would pass on the distance from the boundary, given the height. That's my question.
Well, there's a combination of things there. I mean, it's a planning application, so it's for a planning officer to go out and have a look at it and assess it on the basis of their experience and what they think is acceptable or not acceptable. And in my view, although the building is visible from adjoining properties, and that is normal for a lot of outbuildings, and to be honest, I've seen taller. It is barely visible from the street. Therefore, the recommendation is to approve.
Councillor Rainbird. Sorry, yeah.
I'm still...
Again, through you, Chairman, there's no restriction under planning law as to how close you can build to a boundary. No, there may well be under building regulations, there may well be under the Party Wall Act, which are civil pieces of legislation. Under planning, you can seek to. No, there are no restrictions that I'm aware of. That said, no, if somebody chooses to build right up to the boundary, you judge it on its planning merits. Whether it's a means of enclosure, whether it's a building or whatever, and you assess it in terms of how does it impact on the adjoining properties. The grant of planning permission doesn't override Party Wall Acts, and it doesn't override covenants, etc., etc., etc. You just have to judge this on its merits. You've heard from the neighbour that it is close to the boundary. There's a window overlooking their property, albeit a utility window. I've not been to the site. If you don't feel comfortable granting permission or refusing permission, then maybe the option is to go and see it for yourselves on site and assess both the height, mass and its relationship to the adjoining properties, as well as the other concerns you've heard. You've also heard the neighbour saying that they're looking to implement permitted development rights in respect of the main dwelling, which is under Class AA, which is extending a property upwards, which is permitted development rights bestowed by the General Permitted Development Order. It's perfectly reasonable why people want to live out of their house whilst they're doing those works. I don't know the circumstances behind that. That may well be the reason why. That's not really for consideration, but there's a story behind that gives you another reason, perhaps, why the proposal is before us. But ultimately, no. You make the decision. If you feel you haven't got sufficient information, you feel it could benefit from visiting on site, then at least those raising concerns about the application and the applicants will at least have had the assurance that members have done all they can to understand the proposal and its impact on the neighbours, street scene, etc.
That answers my question. Thank you, Adrian.
Councillor Rainbird.
With everything being said, again, I propose that a site visit is done. I think that's the only way we can get a real grasp of the impact that this building is having. So yeah, that's my proposal.
Any further comments or a seconder for the proposal?
I'll second it.
Okay, yep. That's to you for summary.
Thank you, Chair. It's proposed by Councillor Rainbird, seconded by Councillor Breese, that the application be deferred for the purposes of a committee site visit to enable the committee to assess the relationship of the building to its surrounding area. To you for the vote.
Okay, can I see a show of hands in favour of the councillor's proposal? Those against? Abstentions? Okay, so that's deferred. We now move on to item 12, which is urgent business. There are no items of urgent business, and the next meeting will be held on Thursday, the 2nd of July, at 2026 at the Forum Toaster, starting at 4 p.m.